Well, it's been a couple of hours since the opening round of the 2022 Intelligent Money British GT Championship, and I don't think that anyone here at Oulton Park has caught their breath yet. It was a stunning way to start the 2022 campaign, with an all-out brawl between the Balf Motorsport Audi and the Ram Racing Mercedes, keeping us all thoroughly entertained right until the dying seconds of the race. Race number 2 of the day is just a few minutes away. The cars are about to roll out onto the track for another 60-minute race in very similar conditions. It's overcast but warm. The track is dry. There's little to no threat of rain. Perfect conditions for racing. And with a jumbled up grid, success penalties to be factored in, there's a lot more to talk about as we prepare for this second round of the championship around the full Oulton Park International Circuit. My name is Andy McEwen, up here in the commentary box. I'll be joined a bit later on by David Addison and Bryn Lucas down in the pit lane, and for the time being out on the grid, ready to go and chat to some of the drivers ahead of the race. And indeed, I think we can head down there to Bryn now, who has got the best seat in the house, Bryn, right amongst all of the action down on the grid.
I'd say the best seats in the house, although I never get to sit down, but that's for another day. Look, the cars are coming round onto the grid right now. We had a phenomenal first race here for 2022. What a finish it went down to, with the Ram Racing to my right-hand side and the Balf to my left-hand side that will be there in just a few moments' time, kind of switching positions really in that first race. And that does have a knock-on effect to this race because, of course, penalties come into play for the second race, and there is going to be a complete role reversal. Now, we are waiting for the cars to come onto the grid. Ian Loggy is going to be here standing outside of the Ram Racing car with Jules Gounon inside it, and he looked phenomenal in that car, didn't he, in that first race. And Addis is further down as well. David Addison's going to be catching up with quite a few of the drivers. But Andy, we are waiting for the cars to come around here. The conditions of weather, we do like to talk weather, don't we, in British GT? It is overcast, which is kind of okay as long as it stays dry, although talking to David Addison earlier on, he hopes there's going to be a little bit of rain just around the pit stop window, just to confuse the teams as best as he possibly can. Now, we're getting a lot of the teams coming onto the grid. There's a huge array of fans here. It's so busy, which is great to see. In fact, Richard Neary is just coming on here, and we'll try and grab him a little bit later on as well, but we are just waiting for the cars. In fact, we'll grab a few people as we make our way onto the grid properly. And, well, one man we actually haven't seen in the car this year. He's here now supporting, it seems to be, Ram Racing. Now, you're not in the car this year for us, but it is nice to see you out here in 2022.
I tried my best to get in the car, but I had 3 deals that just didn't come off. So I definitely thought I'd come and support Jules today. He's done an amazing job this morning. Obviously, I was teammates with him for 2 years, so I know what he can do. Absolutely. Well, it's nice to see you back here. Another to see is Ian Loggy, who is now joining us too. Ian, you've got a different teammate for this year, as we know. You're the perennial kind of second place when it comes to GT3. I'll break it to you gently. But, of course, this year, eyes are firmly on you as overall GT3 winner.
Yeah, this year's going to be a big year for sure. I've been doing a lot of racing in the winter, etc., to be well prepped for this, and I think we've got the speed. Jules is like a machine out there at the moment. He's just done such a great job in the last race, and let's see what he can do in this one.
I was talking just before you came onto the grid of the fact there are penalties in this race that weren't in the first race, but of course you're starting on pole position and you have less of a penalty.
Yeah, we've got 7 seconds penalty, but Jules is on new tyres. So I'm hoping we can make that 7 seconds up. If he gets a good start and gets into clear air, it's going to be 10 laps before he catches the GT4. I know he's really great through the traffic, so he should make some time there as well. But in British GT, you just never know what's going to happen. Who would have said we would have started 10th today and ended up second and challenging for the first position? So. Yeah, it's been a good day so far. Let's keep fingers crossed that we can continue.
Well, there's some fingers crossed for you, but I think we should expect some big things from you this season. And now I know David Addison is just a bit further up. I was going to call it Addis, and I got confused halfway through, but he is down there on a bit of a walkabout. David, where are you?
Well, at the moment, Bryn, I'm near Jamie Caroline's Mercedes. It was a car that we saw get turned around in the first race. If I can just squeeze Vic Lee out of the way. Excuse me, Vic. Now, Jamie, first race was a bit busy. Hoping to steer out of trouble in this one, I guess.
Yeah, I always try and stay out of the trouble, but I seem to seem to attract it. But yeah, I mean, it's my first race start in GT3. Got to go forward. I'm around a few people I raced in race 1, so learn how aggressive they are or how much they are. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. Excited. Just need to go forward. We have the pace to be further up than we are. We had a few reasons why we're a bit further down from qualifying, but I think we have a good car underneath us and we should do a good job.
Excellent. Fingers crossed. Good luck. Now, let's just see whether there's anybody else we can grab on the grid. Brownie, walk this way with me because Kelvin Fletcher is standing here. Kelvin, that was a fairly frantic first race, and Martin was telling me you had all sorts of grief with tyres and a puncture, and it wasn't really your race.
No, yeah, we didn't have much luck on our side. Yeah, struggling with a few little gremlins ourselves, adapting as well as drivers, I think, to a new car. Obviously, the Bentley last year, which was amazing around here, but yeah, it's a lot for us to learn. But yeah, puncture and a drive-through, it wasn't the best.
Martin was saying this new tyre takes a lot of getting used to.
It does, yeah. The degradation is pretty good in a sense. There's not really a big drop-off, you know. So the longevity of the tyre is fantastic, but for us, it's just understanding that tyre and working out what's the temp, what's the the pressures and that. And again, doing that with a new car as well. So there's a lot of new things for us to learn. But we're confident, we're happy, we're healthy, sun's shining, we're on telly. It's good, isn't it?
Makes a change from farming. Good luck, Calvin. Nice to see you. Right, let's keep walking because one of the beauties of a British GT grid is that the cars are fantastic, and it's also a rare opportunity, as I say, for people like me to get out and about. Let's go to number 8. Let's go to number 8, the Aber Mercedes, because that had a fairly checkered first race, what with dramas and incidents and penalties. If I can get hold of Richard Neary for a moment. Richard, that was a difficult first race, wasn't it?
Well, to be honest, I thought we managed it quite well until we came to some back markers and got tripped up. To that point, I thought we had it all under control, really.
What about the pit stop? Is that down to the driver or is that down to the pit crew? You were, what, a few tenths under, if that?
Yeah, 3 tenths. It's very marginal, isn't it? What can you do,
Yeah.
It's black and white. We can't really object to it, but, it is what it is.
It is indeed. Right, good luck for the second race. So that's the nearest, father and son. Now, where do we go to next? Let's try and get Bob Neville, who's walking towards me. Now, Bob Neville runs Team Rocket RJN, and your McLaren, Bob, ended up with damage in the first race. Is it good to go?
It's good to go, yeah. The mechanics did a fantastic job, and there it is.
Fantastic. James didn't get a chance to drive it, though.
No, he didn't. He couldn't believe it when we said, sorry, you're not going to get in. Yeah, it was just so close to the stop, wasn't it? Just
exactly.
Half a lap, 1 lap maybe to the pit stop. But anyway, let's see how we go now.
Good luck. Thanks, Bob. Now, Team Rocket RJN, I should explain. RJN is Robert J. Neville, Bob Neville you've just heard from. Of course, the Rocket bit is Jensen Button, who has an involvement in the team. Now, there is the McLaren. You're looking the wrong way, my fault. Let's see whether we can have a quick word with Kevin Say, who's a winner here in seasons past. This is the number 93 Mercedes, and he was a winner here last year. Kevin, sorry to interrupt you. You must like this place because you were running really well at the front in your stint, and of course you won here last year.
Yes, it's almost like the Macau street circuit in a way. So that's how I kind of like the circuit. So yeah, let's see how it goes on this race.
Fantastic. Good luck. Right, over my shoulder, we've got this ultra-competitive GT4 grid. It's about time we caught up with developments in that GT4 class. Let's rejoin Bryn.
Thanks very much there, Adders. Yeah, I'm with Darren Turner, and in the first race, Darren, you started 5th and you finished 5th. Now you're starting 1st, so all eyes are on you.
Yeah, hopefully we could do a bit better than we had in round 1. It didn't go to plan as we had imagined it was going to go, so we've got a bit of work to do. But just sitting here now, there's a bit of drizzle coming on the screen, so maybe the weather's going to change a few things in round 2.
You've just preempted my next question because it is coming down a fair bit. Is this changing the mindset straight away, or you have to wait and see?
Well, the mindset is still to try and win and hand over to Matt at the pit stop in the best position I can. But we'll see. I mean, it's always a risk when you're out on slicks and the rain's coming down, but we'll just sort of manage it the best we can and hopefully have a clean race.
Had you got any idea before you got in the car that it might start to rain around now?
No, not at all. So I should have looked out the back of the garage and had a look at the clouds, but yeah, quite surprised. We've had such a nice weekend up here at Oulton Park with the weather, so the fact that we're sitting on the grid now and the rain's starting to come down, it just makes it a bit more interesting.
Well, look, in qualifying you said there's no such thing as a perfect lap. You've never run a perfect lap. Maybe you need that one in this first lap of this race.
I could probably do with 20 perfect laps coming up. Obviously the Audi's really quick, and And everyone behind, they want to be in pole position, and they want to be ahead of us by the end of the first lap. So we just got to try and keep them in that position and try and stay out of trouble.
Well, good luck.
Thanks very much.
Should we carry on and have a little look around if we swing around here? Because we've got the Audi of Senan fielding Rich Williams as well. Now, if we come over to the car now, thought I'd have a quick impromptu chat with you because it was a great first race for you guys, but you've got slightly different conditions and you've got Darren Turner to the right.
Yeah, obviously there's a few spots on the windscreen, but to be fair, I'm kind of looking forward to it if we do get a few showers. Makes it a little bit more interesting. I know this car's great in these conditions, so either way, I think we'll see what happens in this race. I think the team's put a great car underneath us, and me and Rich have just got to go out there and enjoy this one.
Well, enjoy. Best of luck.
Thank you, mate.
There you go. We're about to get going. So let's head over then to the commentary pairing of Andy McEwen and David Addison.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, it wouldn't be a British Bank Holiday Monday without a little bit of talk about the weather. Have to say, when Bryn started mentioning it on the grid then, David, I started to scoff and think he was being very British to be whinging about the weather. But yes, 2 minutes later, the rain did arrive.
Just as I was legging it off the grid, it started. It is noticeably greyer and much, much cooler than it was for the first race. You don't need your sunnies anymore. But that said, the cloud is breaking over Old Hall Corner. This is absolutely brilliant, isn't it? A real quandary for the teams. I have to say, I don't think this is significant enough yet, but you never know quite what is going to come from the weather gods. Now, number 91 BMW didn't do the first race. It's going to be a pit lane starter for the second. Angus Fender will start. Finally, he will get some laps in. That car hadn't turned a wheel since it left BMW until Friday, and it's had this catalogue of dramas. Finally, it can go racing. But the battle we enjoyed at the end of race one is just going to carry on, isn't it? Because you've got those two drivers on the front row of the grid. The amount of buzz in the paddock surrounding the first race and just how good it was absolutely has lifted, if you like, the championship to another level, and we're looking forward to more of the same.
Yeah, same on social media as well between the races. Everyone is talking about the British GT Championship, and rightly so. Yes, you make the point that our top two finishers from race one in reverse order are on the front row of the grid. That is just a coincidence, actually. It's nothing to do with the race one result. The grid for this set based upon the qualifying sessions yesterday, so the pro drivers went out and qualified in the second qualifying sessions, and that sets the grid for this one. It just so happens that Ram Racing and Balf Motorsport are on it this weekend, but directly behind them we've got the likes of Barwell Motorsport, the 76 team, that need a good result after less than ideal races in race one, certainly for Barwell.
And I still love this idea of Jules Gounon growing up watching Adam Carroll race. Adam probably said, well, I used to watch your father race, so what goes around comes around. But the grid then accelerates away, rolling start, of course. The road is still dry enough for this little sprinkling of rain not to be an issue, but we are set for another fantastic 60 minutes with Jules Gounon starting on pole position with Adam Carroll lining up alongside him. Mercedes and Audi on the front row of the grid ahead of Sandy Mitchell. No pit stop penalty. Real dark horse for a win here. Ewan Hankey, good qualifying fourth in the McLaren alongside. Fifth on the grid, Marcus Clatton's McLaren. Phil Keen's Lamborghini alongside ahead of Jamie Caroline, and lining up with him is James Dorlin in the repaired Redline Racing Lamborghini after it's off. Then you get Lewis Williamson, penalised in race one alongside the other Lewis Proctor. Behind them, there is Will Tregertha, class winner earlier on in the day in the Bentley, and Sam Neary goes first in number 8 Mercedes ahead of Jamie Stanley, and alongside him is Martin Plowman in the Paddock Motorsport McLaren shared with Kelvin Fletcher. Next is Scott Malvin's Porsche and James Kell out for the first time today in the Team Rocket RJN McLaren. Then it's Chris Froggatt and the gap where Angus Fender would have been, but he's going to start, as I just said, from the pit lane. In GT4, it's Darren Turner on pole. Senan Fielding, who won earlier on in the day, is alongside, and of course with it, the 10 seconds of success penalty. Will Burns and Jack Mitchell, BMW and Toyota next. Will Burns saying they were really struggling with brakes in that first race. Seb Hopkins for Team Parker Racing in the Porsche Cayman is next, alongside Josh Miller, who goes from 24th on the grid ahead of Chris Sulkelt and Ross Wiley, who's got 5 seconds in the pits. Josh Miller ahead of him has got 7. Then it's Matt Cowley and Freddie Tomlinson on the penultimate row of the grid, which is rounded out in turn by Mo Ritson and Bobby Trundley. Isn't it fantastic to see not only such a big grid of GT cars, but such a big crowd at Oulton Park? I know it's not the easiest of circuits to overtake, although actually the drivers in race one proved that it can be done. But the place looks fantastic, and we're in for another superb race, I'm sure.
Could not agree more. There's been a buzz around the place ever since Friday testing, and I've never seen so many people here on a test day as I did on Friday. The number of spectators has just grown and grown and grown as the weekend's gone on, and yeah, the sense of anticipation. Often people go home after the first race to try and avoid the traffic. Not happening today. No one wants to miss race 2.
Talking of traffic, there is going to be a lot of it over the next 60 minutes. We had a look on board Jules Gounon's Mercedes. This is Chris Froggatt in the 2Cs Motorsport run Sky Tempesta Racing Mercedes. Not the same Mercedes he drives in GT World Challenge Europe, because that's run by the Gruppa M team. It's a Ram Racing Mercedes on pole, a Balfe Motorsport Audi alongside. Sean Balfe has won in the British GT Championship now in Audi, in Mosler, in Porsche and in McLaren. Is he going to make it 2 out of 2 today? Not if Jules Gounon and Ian Logie have anything to say about it. It is round 2 of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. It is an hour of racing. It is go, and a great start by Jules Gounon as Sandy Mitchell in the green nose Lamborghini tries to line up on the inside, couldn't quite do it, and so Sean Balfe is going to be second. And actually I think Sandy Mitchell has lost out a little bit then coming out of Old Hall Corner, because it is Gounon and in second place, Balfe in third. You've got the leading McLaren, and again 1 or 2 cars, and there's contact there, I'm afraid, as the Bentley Will Tregertha gets into the back of Phil Keane, turns the Lamborghini around, and that creates drama coming out of Cascades. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. 3 of them off, 1 in avoidance, and I'm afraid that Phil Keane rather was the innocent party in that.
Yeah, there was contact before that as well, involving the number 15 Mercedes as well, so lots of hip and shoulder action down into Cascades for the first time. That will have jumbled the order up. Stella Motorsport doing race 2 what they couldn't do in race 1 and lead halfway around the first lap in GT4, having moved ahead of Darren Turner. Senan Fielding overtakes Darren Turner then for the GT4 lead as they head over Hilltop for the first time. Side by side here, the third between the McLarens, but the Ram Mercedes getting away.
Yeah, Ewan Hankey it is up into 3rd place then. 4th there, number 77 of Marcus Clutton. 5th is Jamie Caroline, and so Sandy Mitchell, 3rd on the grid, has really dropped back. Now the Lamborghini does seem to be struggling around here, partly on this new tyre, partly on the balance of performance. And Sandy going backwards on the first lap, which is not like him at all. And then next in the queue, number 4, the yellow Mercedes there, Lewis Williamson at the wheel of it. And so there is already an incident being investigated. Number 3 Bentley, number 18 Lamborghini. Well, no real surprise there. Will Tregertha, we saw, get into the back of Phil Keane.
Yeah, that I'm sure will have caught the attention of the clerk of the course. So out of Lodge Corner they go. They pour across the start-finish line. Jules Gounon's gone already. His lead at the end of the first lap, 1.7 seconds over Carroll in second. A bit like we saw in race 1 when it was Balfe in the car. The Audi seems to take a few laps to switch on. Carroll has not lost the amount of ground in the opening lap that his teammate did in the first race, but he's certainly under pressure and not able at the moment to go with Gounon. This train for second place extending all the time. 4 of them together for the time being. The Audi still in front.
Now this is what Jules was trying to do in the first race, but he couldn't get past Adam Carroll in order to do it. But right now he is building up the gap. Now remember, he has to serve 3 seconds fewer in the pit stops than does number 22 Audi, because you get 7 for being second, 10 for winning the race. In GT4 then, it is currently the Senan Fielding Audi ahead. Darren Turner doing the chasing, so there is the Audi victorious earlier on. Darren Turner going with him, and Will Burns is 3rd, and Jack Mitchell there in the Toyota Supra in 4th place, just ahead of Josh Miller. So as ever, great battles rage on in the GT4 elements of the race. Jules Gounon at the end of lap 1, cop this, 1.7 seconds ahead of everybody else. Just 1 lap of racing.
And that is pretty impressive, but we'll see whether or not Adam Carroll builds up a bit of speed over the next few laps. Here you can see the GT4 leading duo, they're getting away. Good to see Will Burns up there in 3rd place, the man who wrapped up the British GT4 Championship here at Oulton last year with a race to spare. Didn't really see him much in race 1, but he's up there in 3rd place for the time being. I think we're about to see a replay of what happened at the start. It was a much messier start this time around, not necessarily what you'd expect from the pros. That was Clutton into the side of Jamie Caroline, and then there, Phil Keane delayed mid-corner, and unfortunately, Tregertha straight into the back of him.
Yeah, I don't think you could say that Will Tregertha is a dirty driver. I think he would rather misjudge that, because it's a new car to him. Suddenly he found Phil Keane in the way, but let's just ride on board with Phil Keane. You'll see what's going on ahead. Look, Sandy Mitchell losing places left and right. Phil Keane thinks about the inside line, and all of a sudden he will get the bang in the back. Through goes Lewis Williamson, around goes the Lamborghini, and we have already the team manager of SRO Motorsport, then the Bentley team being summoned to see the race director, and that's only going to end really one way, isn't it?
You would suspect so. The other McLaren involved in that, by the way, was the Fox Motorsport car, I'm afraid, that finished 3rd in race 1. So the number 40 McLaren was the one that took to the grass in avoidance, and so it is one of a group of GT3 cars trying to work its way through the GT4 melee, not to lap them, but for position in the early stages. The first of those coming through is the 91 Century BMW of Angus Fender, but a few quick GT3 drivers keen to get through the traffic in the early stages of the chase after the rest of the GT3s.
Would you be surprised if I told you that Jules Gounon has done the fastest lap of the race and in two... Oh dear, big drama there because we've got cars off. One is the Ginetta, isn't it, 56?
And the Paddock McLaren, I think.
Right, OK, and that's at Shell, and that's going to be a safety car, surely, because you've got two cars off and you've got a tyre barrier down, so this has safety car written all over it. McLaren, we think, is off as well. Now, this is for second place, but the gaps are inevitably going to come down if the race has to be neutralised. So Gounon leading, Carroll is second. There is Ewan Hankey in third in the car that he shares with Mia Fluid. In fourth place, Marcus Klassen. Jamie Caroline is fifth. Sixth is Sandy Mitchell in the green Barwell Lamborghini. There, Jamie Caroline turns through the second of the Ram Racing entries, and we are awaiting things to go yellow. So 22, there it is, out of Cascades. Adam Carroll accelerates in, what, 4 seconds arrears now to the leader. There is number 3 in the pit lane. Contact after the first lap incident. We know that the team manager has already been summoned to race control, and we've just gone safety car as predicted.
A terrible news if you're Jules Gounon, because it was 4 seconds up the road, and of course the pit window for the GT3 cars opens 22 minutes into the race. This could be a 10-minute safety car, maybe more, so he's not going to have that much time after that to build up this gap. Remember, he has a 7-second success penalty. 3 seconds, as you said, less than the Balfe Audi, but the car that's in third position, the 76 McLaren of Ewan Hankey, has no success penalty at all. So the safety car out, absolutely the right call. 2 cars off, barrier damage as well. And that is the first safety car of the season for the championship.
And the question now is, how long is it going to be? Therefore, how many racing laps can the pros actually do before the pit stops? Of course, they'll stay out for as long as they can, but in real terms, this is reducing the impact the pro driver can make before we get to the AM stints, and that's bad news for some of the AMs. Now, that is the replay of what happened. The Ginetta of Freddie Tomlinson getting into the side of 26, which is Mo Ritson, and the pair of them going off at pretty high speed. And as the leaders come through, safety car boards and flags are there. There's a 10-second stop-go penalty for car 3. Well, it matters not. It's in its garage with damage anyway, but for the purposes of record, that's what it would have had.
Yes, so they've parked the car, the second Bentley that they managed to break, unfortunately, this weekend. Been a trying weekend, but with that class win in race 1, so a real sort of up and down weekend in a way for SRO Motorsports so far. Safety car out. That looks like Mo Ritson, who's stood chatting to Freddie Tomlinson, discussing the weather, perhaps? I suspect not.
What sort of Easter egg did you get?
Yes.
Yes, that's not what they were discussing, quite right. So Jules Gounon is about to make his way past the incident zone behind the Lotus safety car, and it means that it is Gounon from Carroll from Hankey, the top 3, Klassen, Caroline, Ballon ran out the top 6. Well, that's not Ballon, it's Sandy Mitchell, isn't it? But the timing screen's got the wrong driver's name on it. Lewis Williamson is 7th, ahead of James Dawl in 8th. Lewis Proct in 9th, and Martin Plowman in 10th. GT4, Senan Fielding's Audi, Darren Turner's Aston Martin, Will Burns BMW, Jack Mitchell Toyota. That's the top 4 there. Good variety.
No, it is a really good varied grid in GT4, actually. Possibly one of the most varied we've had for quite some time, with the arrival of a few more of these Porsches and the BMWs. So, yeah, there is Ian Logie, Seb Morris, who chatted to Bryn Lucas on the grid, down there supporting them. Shame Seb's not out there on the grid. That would just be another really talented pro driver to add to the mix. But Jules Gounon leading them down the hill into Hislops and hoping that they get this incident cleared as soon as they can. This is another look at it. Tomlinson was going for it up the inside, a bit late on the brakes, and in the end, Ritson, the innocent victim there.
I'm not sure he would have made the corner anyway, because he did seem to come from a long way back at very high speed. But Freddie Tomlinson stepping out of junior racing into the big league. The incident between those two is going to be looked at after the race. So the stewards clearly don't care about the bank holiday traffic. They're going to let the traffic go and have a look at it. But the downside is that neither car is able to continue.
Intrigued to see, as and when we do get a restart here, the pace of Adam Carroll, because he lost quite a big chunk of time to Gounon initially, but then the gap had stabilised a bit just before the safety car was thrown. Of course, now he catches back up to the Mercedes and the driver with whom he had that sensational battle in race 1. So perhaps once the race goes green again, Adam Carroll might have something for Jules, who you can see is calmly sat aboard the Ram Racing Mercedes, weaving around to keep some heat in the tyres. David made the point that it is quite a bit chillier before race 2 than it was earlier on. So behind the safety car, work still to be done. You never get a moment's rest as a racing driver. If you're in the car and it's moving, you've got something to do, even if it's behind safety car at low speed, weaving around, pumping the brakes. That makes the brake rotors hot, and that heat then dissipates out into that Pirelli rubber, so that when the race does restart, he can go immediately on the attack and try and find a way back ahead of Gounon, who made a brilliant start to the race, didn't he, Gounon?
Yeah.
Who was completely unchallenged into turn 1.
And again, the Audi, as we saw in the first race, Adam Carroll now, Sean Balfe in race 1, it does not seem to be as comfortable on the colder tyre as the Mercedes. The Mercedes seemingly, perhaps more than any other car in GT3 on this grid, is able to get the tyre switched on sooner than other brands, and that clearly is paying dividends.
Front-engine car, and they can sometimes be more stable as well than some of the mid-engine Audis, Lamborghinis, McLarens. That will, of course, play its part on cold tyres too. So all theories, but definitely seems to be the case.
And something else just to throw into this mix while we're on the tyre, and we're not criticising Pirelli, it's just what you glean from the paddock, but Martin Plowman was talking about this in between races, that it seems to be quite temperature sensitive as well. So what they had learned here testing a few weeks ago isn't the same as they learned this morning in hotter conditions, and now it's cooler. So what they learned earlier on isn't necessarily going to be of any value for this race, so does that factor in as well?
Which I like, to be honest. Anything that makes the teams and drivers' lives harder, we enjoy, because it means they have to work for this. They're trying to work things out on the fly, and it gives the opportunity for some surprise results. If one team wraps their head around this a little bit quicker than others, and then perhaps they can go out there and get some surprise results. On board here with the Sky Tempesta Racing Mercedes, and that 93 car driven by Chris Froggatt in the opening stint. They were a contender early in race 1, weren't they? And then fell back a little bit during the pit cycle, 13th at the moment.
And they got a penalty as well because of track limits, I think it was in their case. So there was quite a lot happening, but kept race control on its collective toes.
Also spotted David right behind it, the number 2 McLaren, repaired after its shunt in race 1 as well. That's pretty impressive from the Rocket RJN squad.
Yes, indeed. We heard from Bob Nether on the grid. Right, let's head back to the pits.
Well, this really has played into the hands of Balfe in many, many ways. Sean here, now we just saw the gap grow to around 4 seconds for Jules Gounon. Now it's had to close down because of the safety car, so it has played into your hands a fair bit.
Yeah, it has. I mean, Jules was stretching his legs there. It's a bit concerning. Obviously, his mission will be to chase down that success penalty, whatever it was, I think 7 seconds. So, and you've got to say, it looked like he was on target to be able to zero that out, handing over to Ian. So, yeah, safety cars brought it all back in again. So, yeah, I mean, it's still early days, so I'm not jumping up and down yet. We've got 10 seconds as well. So I think Ian and myself are going to get back out for the start of race 2, right in the mix of the middle. It's going to be difficult to predict it, really.
And what about the weather, which is not easy to predict as well, because it is threatening to rain a fair bit, but also holding off at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, the apps were all saying good chance of rain, but as you say, it just seems to have threatened and then disappeared a little bit. So, yeah, well, it's Easter, it's Britain weather, so it'll be what it'll be, but hopefully it'll stay straightforward, because we want a safe race, essentially, don't we, for everybody.
Good stuff. Good luck as well.
Thank you. Cheers.
We keep talking about the second stint being the AMs. Sean Balfe's not really an AM, is he? I mean, he's been racing a long, long time, I'll grant you, but he's a very, very accomplished driver, is Sean Balfe, and is certainly one of the leading drivers for the second stint. In fact, pretty much all the AMs are AM plus. They've done so much racing, the mileage is such that perhaps calling them AMs is almost unfair. So lots of weaving around, keeping the warmth in the Pirelli tyre, keeping the pressures up in the Pirelli tyre as well. The same tyre across the GT4 and the GT3 cars this year.
Yes, indeed. Just thinking that a couple of drivers that have benefited from this safety car are those that had early dramas, aren't they? Angus Fender, having got through the GT4 traffic, now gets a fast track onto the tail of the GT3 Crocodile.
Yes.
Likewise, Phil Keane, Jamie Stanley delayed down at Cascades on the opening lap. So we do have all of the healthy running GT3s ahead of the GT4s and tagged back onto the tail of the correct class, if you like, the ones that they are fighting with. These early safety cars, they always do turn a race on its head, don't they? Especially where we do have the success penalties. We were just discussing whilst we were hearing from Sean Balfe in the pit lane. You know, Gounon, there was every chance that he could have pulled a 10-second gap on the rest of the field in this opening stint. That ain't going to happen now because we are, only 14 minutes away from the pit window opening. And that makes the AM's job that little bit harder, but gives them more of a race. It's not going to be all decided before the pit stops.
And if you're a good AM, potentially you can make more of an impact into the race because of your pace. The pros run pretty much at the same kind of pace, but a good AM can be absolutely crucial. In GT4, let's hear from Jack Brown, BMW driver with Brin.
Well, it is, as we say, a brand new season and lots to happen out on track. And at the moment, it's kind of playing into your hands a little bit with the gap being what it is and third place.
Yeah, no, it's good. Third place at the moment is good. Unfortunately, the safety car is hindering us at the moment. We want to be trying to pull away from the cars behind so we can take advantage of their penalties in the pit lane. So.
Now, you said to me just before we started this interview, you might struggle because you've lost your voice, but the car hasn't lost any pace over the winter.
No, the car's certainly good. We've had a few hiccups in testing and first race, but hoping that we've addressed it now. But we won't really see until the safety car comes in. But yeah, quali-wise, good. Race-wise, a few tiggles this morning. A few troubles this morning, but I think we're on top of that now. So.
We've been talking tyres as well out there, and it's been a bit tricky for certain teams. How have you been getting on with the brand new compound?
It's a quicker tyre initially, we think. As the race has gone on, I've got little experience in the car. The tyre seems to be wearing quite hard as the race goes on. Been struggling a bit, but not had a lot of running with the new tyre as a whole. But yeah, I'm getting to grips with it. Will's jumped on it straight away. So.
Well, we've been keeping an eye on Will as he goes around at the moment, and we'll keep an eye on you for the rest of the race. Good luck.
Nice one, thank you guys. Cheers.
So we've got the safety car staying out for the moment. It's not so much moving the cars. I don't think the cars are that badly damaged. It's more what they did to the tyre barriers and that recticel covering in front of them. So really that's got to be put back in place. And as soon as... no, there is a car to be retrieved. Actually, Freddie Tomlinson's Ginetta has got a little bit more damage than anticipated. The largely white Ginetta, but the orange and the purple, well, the orange is on it because Freddie Tomlinson of the Ginetta-owning family, orange is Ginetta's colour, and Joe Wheeler, his co-driver, the son of the late Peter Wheeler, the TVR owner. TVRs were largely purple, and so the purple is on the car as well, reflecting the parentage, if you like, of the two drivers and their connection with two British sports car brands.
Yes, shame we didn't get to see Joe in this one, unfortunately. So, as you said, though, even once the cars are moved, there's barrier repair work to be done. I mean, that is something we see at Oulton Park a lot, but it's part of the charm of the place. It doesn't have the runoff area of a Silverstone or even a Donington Park these days. If you go off, you're probably going to make contact with a barrier, and so that just is going to take a few more minutes to fix. Number 42 leads in GT4, Senna Fielding at the wheel now, but Richard Williams is in the pits with Brin.
Race one went pretty well for Stella, and you started pole in this race, and it was looking pretty good, and it's still looking good for you, but the safety car has come. It never comes at a good time, but it's come at the wrong time, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is really hurting us. So we've got, it's only, as you know, it's only an hour-long race, and the pit stop, we've got a time penalty to serve from winning the first race. So, yeah, this is really, really hurting us. But Senna's doing a brilliant job, as he always does. But it's actually quite weird for me because I'm normally the one starting the car. So this is new territory. So it's, I feel worse being stood here than I would be in the car, actually.
Have you got the abacus out and worked out where you're going to be once the pit stops happen?
No, I don't think my brain would be able to work that out, but it will just wash out and it will be what it will be. So hopefully, we'll see. It looks like they're clearing up the instant now, so hopefully we'll get going the next lap or two. Still got probably another sort of 15 minutes of running before I have to jump in. So yeah, fingers crossed we can still bring a result home.
But obviously from that first race, the confidence you must be pretty high because that gave you so much confidence in the car and what you can do around Oulton Park.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the car around here is working so well. It just gives you the confidence to push and and really be consistent as well. So, yeah, fantastic.
Well, let's see how you get on.
Just before you go, I must give a shout out to George and Alfie and my wife at home because they're going to kill me if I don't mention them.
Done. There you go.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Richard Williams lives another day. So lights are still flashing atop the safety car. Of course, you know the score. When the lights go out, that's the indication it will peel in at the end of that lap. We understand that there is no plan to alter the pit windows, plural, because there's a different window for GT3 and GT4. So really, the pros would have spent the bulk of this behind the safety car, and we're going to have a largely AM race, aren't we? certainly in GT3.
Yes. The pit window opens for GT3 at 22 minutes, does it not? That's in just over 3 minutes' time. So no, they're not going to be able to pit at the end of this lap, but at the end of the next one, they could, couldn't they?
Yes, but the pros will stay out for as long as they can.
Quite
so
possible.
they have a 10-minute window. They will try and get in as many racing laps as they can.
Unless they don't think the safety car will come in before the window closes, because then it's a massive advantage to pit immediately behind the safety car, although we're hearing the safety car may be coming in this time. So that takes that off the table then. They will absolutely stay out as long as they can. But after the first full racing lap, after green, the window would be open for some of the GT3s. If you're buried in traffic, might be worth trying.
This is where the teams, looking at the data, looking at traffic around them and predicting where the cars might rejoin, might roll the dice. Well, let us see. But Jules Gounod needs to go and try and build up this gap. Remember that he will be penalised, in quote, 7 seconds in the pit lane by dint of being second in the first race. But the winning car from race 1, the Audi behind, is penalised 10 seconds. So he's got to try and build up as big a gap as he can, but so too has Adam Carroll over the opposition, because he's going to be hurt more than anybody in GT3 on the pit stops. And of course we had teams getting the pit stop timings wrong earlier on. They need to be on top of that this time around, don't they?
Yes, lots of teams getting it wrong, which is very unlike the British GT teams actually, but I don't know if it's something to do with the busier than usual pit lane that was throwing a few of them off. But yeah, no mistakes can be afforded this time around. So we're going to go racing again this time then. Gounod the leader, Carroll second, but really it's the third, fourth, fifth place cars. If they can stay within 7 seconds of Jules Gounod, they'll get ahead of him after the pit stop. So a crucial 10 minutes or so here for Gounod, the race leader.
So Jules Gounod then, accelerating, slowing, just trying to get some warmth through the tyres. The safety car is peeling in, so Jules Gounod controls the pace. He will now decide when to go, and having gone, he will keep on going, can't go and slow. And look, that's a good restart. Steals 3 lengths already over Adam Carroll. Steams out of Deer Leap. Over the timing line they go. We're back to racing at Oulton Park. 39 minutes on the clock. Long safety car period, but these few racing laps through the pit window for the pros are going to be absolutely crucial, as they're diving up on the inside. Martin Plowman gains a place. That was crucial against Lewis Proctor.
Runs wide on the exit though. Proctor comes back at him, and of course right behind them the Team Parker Porsche of Scott Mulvern. Plowman on the inside runs wide, gets into the side slightly of Proctor, so Mulvern will get past the number 5 McLaren, and then it's the green and black Team ABBA Racing Mercedes of Sam Neary. So Martin Plowman makes the move and then defends it very robustly, going down into Cascades Corner. Mulvern looks faster than him though, gets a good run through Island Bend. The Porsche pulls to drivers left, are right as they turn into the banked hairpin at the top of the circuit. The number 11 McLaren though hangs on to its newly acquired 9th place.
And that Porsche had a puncture and was delayed in race 1, so Scott Mulvern and Nick Jones for Team Parker Racing trying to push on forward and gain something out of this. 11th at the start of the lap. Fight, fight, fight. Scott Mulvern was a real gun years ago in Formula Ford, of course. Comes over hilltop down towards Hislop's. You can see how busy it is up the road, except for Jules Gounod, who is doing his level best now to build that gap. Powering up the hill they come now out of Knickerbrook. Fight the car to the apex. Second gear becomes third as the speed builds. Climb the hill. Fourth. Head under the bridge, aim for the water tower and the tree on the outside of the road, and set the car up for Druids. Brake, turn right, and it's a double apex corner, a good exit from which is crucial for this run down to Lodge. But Jules Gounod is nearly in the next race. So far ahead, is he?
I am astonished. I maybe expected it off the initial start, but after the restart I thought Carroll might stay with him. That's not been the case. So as they come through then, the pit window is open. We don't expect any of the GT3 cars to pit just yet.
But isn't Adam Carroll back in the same boat as at the start of the race, as in tyre temperatures have dropped, so he's got to get them switched on again?
True, although behind the safety car you'd think you might be able to manage that. Clearly not though. He is struggling. Ewan Hankey applying the pressure, and a 2.7 second lead already belongs to Gounod. And remember, Gounod's pit stop is shorter than Carroll's anyway. His gap back to Hankey is just 3 seconds though, so at the moment it is that number 76 car that could potentially come out of the round of pit stops with the race lead. Lots more to play out though. Balfe into the shell hairpin, hanging on, but the queue is forming behind him and it's getting longer by the corner.
And Sandy Mitchell, 6th, in theory should be able to benefit with no success penalty in the pits. The same is true of Jamie Caroline ahead of him in the blue and white Ram Racing Mercedes, but of course John Ferguson is new to that car, whereas Sandy Mitchell and Adam Ballon know the Lamborghini, but it does seem to be struggling for outright pace. But look at this line of cars for second place now. Jules Gounod just disappearing up the road. But it's game on for second place, as in GT4, Sennan Fielding versus Darren Turner versus Will Burns third. Will, remember, is the reigning GT4 champion. He's doing this split season this year of British and European GT4 racing. There he is in the yellow and white BMW in the background. And here, dare one suggest the Audi is a bit cork in bottle-ish. This was at Old Hall Corner at the start of the lap. Number 23, Aston, just being given a rub. Seb Hopkins in the back of it.
Yeah, the 23 Aston that finished second in GT4 race 1, of course, hanging on to its place by the skin of its teeth. Up into Druids we go again. The number 42 car leading here in GT4 has a 10-second success penalty after winning race 1. So again, advantage right now lies with the 27 and the 90 cars behind. They will have no extra time to serve. And of course, the 27 car, being a Pro-Am, David, has an even shorter pit stop. The silver entries in GT4 have an extra 14 seconds to serve. The 27 car, one of only 2 cars that doesn't apply to.
Absolutely. If you like spreadsheets, this is the championship for you, isn't it, to try and work out who's got what and forward think through the pit stops. But yeah, I mean, at the moment, Darren Turner is in the pound seats to certainly after the stops be in the lead, or that car be in the lead when Matt Topham takes it over. And Matt's come on a lot in 12 months of racing, so they should be on for honours in GT4 provisionally. But Jules Gounon leads by 4 seconds. There's another 10-second stop-go penalty being offered up to the number 3 Bentley. And let's have a look at the number 18 Lamborghini that comes over Hilltop. That is Phil Keen's 16th, recovering after the spin that he had earlier on. And further up the road is number 91, Angus Fender at the wheel of it. Angus, a good sim racer as well as real world racer, and he's had very little mileage in this car that's been off the road a couple of times courtesy of Betty Chen this weekend. But Angus Fender for Century Motorsport now in the race from the pit lane start, which is probably a shrewd move because he kept out of trouble and he's now making progress.
Yeah, he passed James Kell on this lap for 14th place. The BMW, it's always looked quick in his hands. Fresh spots of rain, I would say, on our commentary box window. The sun is out, and yet it's raining. Easter bank holiday, what did I say? This could really throw the cat among the pigeons. Again, it's not heavy at the moment, but it will just be on the minds of the teams and might prompt them to even further delay coming into the pit lane. You don't want to pit, only for it to rain a couple of minutes later.
It's Liverpool rain, this. You see, we're a bit close to Liverpool. It's definitely Liverpudlian rain, not Mancunian rain. Out of Old Hall Corner then. Race leaders are on lap 14, although we've had, as you know, relatively few real racing laps. Gounon is now 5.3 seconds to the good, and of course he's done the fastest lap of the race, as now Sandy Mitchell there in the Barwell Lamborghini goes through, does he, on the inside ahead of Jamie Caroline, who looked as though he'd run out way wide going into Island Bend. Now let's just double check when we see an external shot, but it looks as though he'd gone through, and more spots of rain continues to fall.
Yeah, that looked a bit heavier at that end of the circuit, didn't it? Oh yeah. Yes, if I look to my left, it's really starting to rain quite heavily. Well, we are nearly halfway through the race. We've had British GT races that have started dry and then become wet on Easter weekend, and it's all ended in tears, and look at them skating around down at Hislops. This is the wettest part of the circuit, and they've got no grip.
And there's one off at Cascades in the background. That was why Jamie Caroline suddenly slithered out wide. There he is. Look, he had dropped back because track conditions are changing now. The pit stop window ain't that far away, but much as it's wet over at Knickerbrook, it's okay where we are near the start and finish line. So Oulton Park is not consistent in the amount of rain that's falling, which is another big headache for the drivers. They don't know how hard to push. It is pretty heavy at the moment coming down towards Lodge Corner, and the drivers are going to want to brave it out until the pit window actually opens. But then what do you do in terms of tyres? It's been declared a wet race. That means the onus is on the teams to decide rather than the race director to stop it for them. And into the pit lane comes Adam Carroll. Now this could be a master stroke if they get the tyre choice right. Let's see, Adam Carroll is in to give way to Sean Balfe.
Yes, because it's raining now, but the sun is still shining. If it stops, the track will dry almost instantly. They've got wet tyres ready down at Balfe Motorsport. This is a big roll of the dice. It will either win them the race or it will send them to the back of the field. As off goes the 15 car, and that is in a big way. Where is...
Coming out of Old Hall? No, Druids.
Druids.
Up towards Druids.
Same place as Davidson in race 1, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, has Balfe not come in too early?
22 minutes in, the window opened, I believe. So, no, that's
all right.
Just about all right.
So they're going to go on to wets, but the safety car surely is going to come back out again. And this, as I say, could be the masterstroke because they've come in, they've got the tyres on, and if we now go safety car, everybody else is going to have to pit. Yep, safety car again. So it's not for the weather so much, it's for the incident with the barrier down. But yeah, it's coming up Clay Hill towards Watertower, where it's gone off on the approach to Druids. Right, so the race is going to be slowed. You can expect another wave of cars into the pit lane, and now it is Sean Balfe to go out of the pits in 22. He's not the only one that came in. The Amber Mercedes is in. I thought I saw also Chris Froggatt come in, and also Phil Keane to give away to Michael Igoe, but we need to check what they've done in terms of tyres.
Jamie Stanley in as well, and then some GT4s pitting too, because their pit window had just opened at that point. There is not so much what's left of the Mercedes, but what's left of the barrier. Jamie Caroline off in exactly the same spot as Graham Davidson. This time, though, did it all on his own. Just so much water on the road, and crunch into the wall. The camera goes flying. Thankfully, they are replaceable. It's not a manned camera, that. It's a lock-off camera, so no cameraman to have to take cover. You're right, though, David. In they all come. Gunon is in, Ewan Hankey is in, and off the road, I think, at Lodge Corner, possibly, is Marcus Clutton.
Yes, and McLaren certainly that's rotated at pretty low speed, because slicks on a wet road is now not working at all. Yep, Clutton it was. He has recovered. So that's the leading car's pit stop, and a red flag is being shown, and I fear this is more for the barriers than for the weather. So the cars will form up. Now, a red flag in a GT race is relatively unusual, because that's why you have the safety car. But if it's going to be such a long period to repair the barriers, then there's almost no race. So this is to, I think, attend to that lengthy potential barrier repair, and the fact that some cars are pitted and some haven't is now going to take an awful lot of unravelling for the resumption of the race. This is where you do not want to be the race director. Peter Daly and his team in race control are now going to be absolutely what's-its deep in timing data to try and piece together a grid ready for the restart.
Well, because it will go back a lap, but some had pitted, hadn't they? Some were in the pit lane at the time.
Depends whether it's a stoppage or a suspension, because technically it's a suspension. You would carry on. More contact. Hello. That's how in replay we had the incident between Sandy Mitchell and Marcus Clutton. It was Clutton's McLaren trying to go around the outside and contact, and Sandy Mitchell pretty frustrated. So everybody heading for the pit lane, but yes, some have pitted, some haven't, and we will await confirmation as to how this is all going to pan out. But red flag with 30 minutes and 33 seconds to go.
Right, OK, hope you followed all of that. It's a sensible decision, though, for two reasons, really. I mean, one, as David said, that barrier damage was going to take a long time. It took them a good 10 minutes or more to fix the barrier damage at Shell. This is worse, and the car also needs to be recovered as well. And then the changeable conditions, as much fun as they are for us watching, it was getting a bit dicey out there for the drivers, except, David, has it stopped now?
It's not stopped, but I reckon by the time we go racing again, it will have done. And therefore, if you have made that call for wets, you're going to have to go back onto slicks. But it depends what the regulations allow you to do in terms of whether you can now change, whether you're under part fair make conditions. And I would think you have to be at the moment. So what you've got is what you would restart on. But
well, no one's touching the cars in pit lane, which would suggest you might be onto something there. In, of course, comes the Balfe Audi. Right, let's take another look at the reason that we're under red flag conditions. The rain hammering down, and this Jamie Caroline over the top of Clay Hill. The car goes light, he loses traction, he heads for the barriers and heads for our locked off camera. As we've said, there was not a camera operator manning that. Thank goodness. If there was, then I think that they would have scarpered into the trees long before the Mercedes got there. Scary place to go off, and we've seen two GT3 cars in that barrier today. It's not a place that you see a lot of accidents, but when you do, they tend to be sizable.
Indeed. I've just been reminded by the editor of Motorsport News that I had some earlier on in the day asked for a shower at pit stop window time. I take full responsibility for this. So this is the order, but of course everybody is in the pit lane because the race has been stopped, and that's where the teams are being brought to. And of course the likes of Gunon and Hankey as examples haven't yet rejoined. They were serving their mandatory stop when the red flag came out, so they're kind of trapped in the pit lane. Whereas those that had made a pit stop, well, as I say, there's a lot of unravelling to do, and the race control team is going to be very busy indeed.
I'm glad it's not our job to sort it out, David. That's all I will say. You're right, though, about the weather. I think if the rain hasn't stopped now, it is stopping. But there are lots of these dark clouds around. Nothing to say that it won't rain again in the near future. And, of course, the longer we're under red flag, the more changeable the conditions may become.
Now, the GT4 pit window is open, technically.
Oh, good.
But what you can do in it remains to be seen. Jules Gunon, then, fresh out of the leading car, and he is in the pit lane ready to talk weather, British weather, with Bryn.
A slightly, I say, unusual situation. You come in for the pit stop and then the red flag happens whilst you are mid-pit stop. So, you know, talk about your stint first of all. How did it go out there for you?
Well, it was very short because the first safety car was very long.
but the car felt amazing. We know that this car, when it's in the front, we had new tires, so it was everything rocking. The car was amazing. I was a bit sad because I think I could have make a big gap for Yen, and then it was really funny, you know, on wet, on the slicks, with grass wet around you and barrier close. It was very tricky. I hope Jamie's okay. I think it's not a heavy impact, so it should be okay. But yeah, it was aquaplaning and was very tricky because if you box too early, you are also done. We boxed to serve our pit stop penalty, so I hope the official will take that in consideration because we actually made and lost the time for that on top of it. So let's see what happened. It's my first time here, so I don't know how it works with the penalty situation. But I definitely really enjoyed my time in Oulton Park. I'm a bit sad it's finished because I'm not going to go back in the car, but what a place.
You're not the only person that's scratching their head at the moment trying to work out what's going on. But what I can see is when Ian came in, when Ian got in the car or was getting in the car, slicks were going on, not wets.
Well, we choose the, I don't know how to say without swearing, but with a big man situation. So
we understand.
Yeah, you understood. But yeah, we thought that with a safety car it could be okay to keep the slicks on the car, and then it's gonna dry really quick. The tarmac is pretty hot. Outside there is wind, but let's see what happens. I don't know what's the situation, but yeah. Thanks for having me, British GT. I had a blast. This track is phenomenal. I hope many tracks can look and say, bring back the grass, bring back the gravel, put some wall, and that's some proper racing.
You've enjoyed it out there, and we've enjoyed watching you out there, and good luck for the rest of this race.
Thank you very much. Let's see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Jules, because we very much enjoyed having you here, and it's not the last time we'll see him. There are, I think, 2 races that Jules Gounon can't do, so Callum McLeod will jump into that Ram Racing Mercedes alongside Ian Loggy, but Ian's won in the British GT Championship with McLeod in the past. Silverstone 2019, I want to say, was the last victory that they took. We keep making these jokes about Easter bank holiday weather, but this morning the spectators trackside were basking in near 20-degree sunlight. Now they are wrapping up under blankets, under umbrellas, getting the hoods up and trying to keep themselves warm, but they've not been deterred. Still a lot of people here. We're a hardy lot, British motorsport fans. A bit of rain ain't going to put them off.
No, and look, it's stopped. It's fine. I don't know what all the fuss is about. Jamie Caroline's car, of course, triggered this red flag, and on the grid before I got to him he was talking to Vic Lee. Vic Lee is now talking to Bryn Lucas.
Yes, I am with Vic, and we're all trying to really work out what's going on, so we thought we'd come to the people that really might know. So Vic, can you fill us in?
Well, I don't know any more than probably you at the moment, only that all the cars, so whether they were in the pits or on the circuit, it's now stopped and it's parked firme. So we're not sure really now how they're going to restart the race. So no work can be done on any cars for a minute. And I guess it's difficult because some of the cars that are in the pits have got an extra. So instead of a 70, they got 77 or 80 second pit stops now. So it's a job for the boys upstairs, unfortunately, until they let us know how they're going to restart it.
It's such a tricky one because, you know, the red flag came at possibly the worst moment when it comes to working out all the different scenarios. One thing we do know is that you've got slicks on the car over your shoulder.
Yeah, we have at the moment, and as you can see, it stopped raining now. So wets were going to go on when it got to park firme. So that if you remember, the car actually came in on slicks, so we had to stop the pit stop. So at the moment, we're just waiting to see what's the weather and how they're going to restart it.
My beady eyes, though, were looking around, and I could only see the slicks around. I couldn't see the wet tyre. So was it going to be that you were going to remain on slicks with the weather the way it was?
No, it wasn't. If you'd have said, when the car came in, they said park firme. So the wets were standing just over there, so they were going to go on the car. But, yeah, I'm hoping now that it just be slicks when we go back, when the restart. So sky's changed now, so hopefully it'll be it's just got to sort out how they're going to start it.
Well, look, Vic, thank you very much for giving us all that opinion and update. We may have an idea now with the commentators, so we'll go back to them, but Vic, thank you.
OK, thank you.
Yeah, Bryn, what we're learning is that the race director is effectively going to let all the teams do the driver changes under this red flag situation. So when we go back racing, it will be effectively the second stint with a reset, if you like, with a fresh driver. What we've not yet got to the bottom of is the tyre situation, because ordinarily if there's a red flag, the cars go to the grid under park fair-made conditions, but some were in the pit lane anyway when the red flag came out. Doing the pit stop, you can't suddenly stop doing your pit stop. So the tyre element of all of this has not yet been confirmed. That said, some teams were changing tyres, we understand, during the red flag, but you could argue that's a safety thing. However, in terms of the second stint, it will be a different driver, the next driver. They'll go to the grid. A bit of liquid has been spilled out of Lewis Williamson's, now James Cottingham's Mercedes. But as I say, the whole reason for this stoppage wasn't the change in conditions. Yes, okay, that triggered an incident, but it's the barrier damage that takes a long time to sort out. As we saw from that earlier incident in race 1 with James Dorlin, when he hit the barrier, the car carried on, but the barrier was really whacked pretty badly down. So a bit fretful here, Andy, about the amount of incontinence that the DK Mercedes has got, because there's an awful lot of stuff that's gone on the floor there to soak it up.
Well, you noticed some bodywork loose at the front of that car earlier on in the race. It's had a couple of little bits of contact, but yeah, this looks more like oil than something like radiator fluid, doesn't it, from the bit of the car it's coming out of. So you can see a witness mark on the back where someone's gone into the rear diffuser. They've had side-to-side contact, front-end contact as well. They've been in the wars, the number 4 2Cs Motorsport car. James Cottingham then will get a go now. I understand everything that David's just explained to me. The one bit that is definitely going to create an even more topsy-turvy situation is the success penalty situation, because of course some teams were due to have longer pit stops than others. There will be winners and losers from that. Those that hadn't yet pitted, therefore presumably are not going to have to serve any sort of success penalty. They're going to benefit. Those that had pitted early and served a penalty, like for example Balf Motorsport, may not come out of it quite so well.
Yeah, I mean, what we're going to have, effectively, is the race continuing. They'll have to go, I would have thought, a lap back, because you've got 2 cars that are notionally a lap up at the moment.
Yeah.
So, as I say, there's a bit of unravelling to do. We'd also lost this car, number 5, which is the Lewis Proctor McLaren, and that also seems to have put itself somewhere that McLarens aren't meant to park, so that is being retrieved, and you've got barrier damage there as well. So that's in the general area of Jamie Caroline's car, I understand, but they separate incidents and a different lap. So as the race is, just to make the point, under this race suspension period, we will go back racing as soon as we can. Just while we have the opportunity, let's remind ourselves, Andy, of what a good race Race 1 was.
It was a cracker, wasn't it? It all got underway with Balf Motorsport on pole position, Sean Balf at the wheel, and Richard Neary keen to beat him into turn 1. A bit too keen, maybe. A bit of door banging between the two of them. The Audi stayed ahead through the corner, but as the GT4 field poured through Old Hall, so the battle continued into turn 2. Off wide went Alex Maliakin in that Red Line Racing Lamborghini. There was Neary finally completing the manoeuvre for the lead. Through also went Graham Davidson, then a sideways moment for Balf would see him drop down as low as 6th position. An all Mercedes battle was going on, whilst in GT4 the Veluga Porsche was in the lead, but wouldn't stay there for long. Contact put the number 15 Mercedes in the gravel at Lodge Corner. And in GT4, well, that Team Parker Porsche has been involved in a lot of close quarters racing today, and there it was, elbowing its way past the Academy Mustang. A 3-way fight for the race lead broke out until one of the cars ended up in the barriers as Graham Davidson tried to make a move on Richard Neary for the lead. There was contact, and out went the McLaren. In, shortly after, came the Ian Loggy-driven Mercedes, handed over to Jules Gounon, and that car would immediately start flying up the order as the Red Line Lamborghini made friends with some GT4 cars. Close battling was the order of the day throughout the entire race. Wherever you looked, there were fights going on, all of them as entertaining as the next, including this one for second place that saw Gounon tap the back of the Jamie Stanley McLaren and eventually complete the manoeuvre a few corners later, heading into Cascades. Gounon, much to the delight of the team, was now released into second place, whilst Darren Turner from the lead of GT4 after the pit stops had to come in to serve a stop-go penalty for a short pit stop. Gounon caught the race leader Adam Carroll, but try as he might over 15 minutes or more, could not find a way through. Lots of others were finding it difficult to make progress as well. James Dorlin, sadly, made very little progress after this rear end shunt into the barriers at Cascades. He rejoined and finished the race, but with quite a bit of rear end damage to the car. As we went into the closing stages, it was side by side for the lead. Gounon alongside Carroll, starting the last lap. Gounon was ahead, ending it. He wasn't, though. Carroll managed to get him back into the first corner to take the victory, and it was an all-Audi affair. Having never won a round of the championship in the past, the SRO Motorsport team made it 2 Audi victories in the same race.
So that was race 1. We are awaiting the resumption of race 2. Now then, listen carefully. I shall say this only once.
I'm taking notes.
It's slightly convoluted. Should a red flag be deployed during the mandatory pit window of a 1-hour race, all cars must return to the pit lane where they will be under parc fermé conditions until the race director instructs otherwise. Okay, so far?
I think so.
Right. Anybody that's not obeyed that will be in strife accordingly, I'm sure. In case of staggered windows, the pit window will be deemed to start at the beginning of the earliest window and end after the end of the latest window.
Okay.
You're nodding sagely. This is good, Andy. The race will be restarted using the race order at the end of the last full lap before the opening of the pit window. So that therefore gets away from the current situation of people on different numbers of laps, right? Okay. With a second driver behind the wheel. Further instructions will be given by the race director. On the instructions of the race director, cars which have not made their pit stop will be released from parc fermé only to change tyres and driver. Should it not be possible to resume the race, the final classification will be that of the race order at the end of the last full lap before the opening of the pit window. So in other words, we're going to go back a lap for the restart. You can do the pit work, but other than that, parc fermé conditions, and it'll be the second driver. The driver changes are permitted, so that can happen, ready for part 2. But it could well be that there are some teams on the wrong tyre going into the restart.
Right, okay. So, in other words, we go back to a lap before the pit window opened. So, the order at the restart is going to be bear very little resemblance to the order that was at the time of the red flag. But that, I think, David, is absolutely the right and most sensible way of clearing it up. So, up to this point then, this is the second race of the day, and Jules Gounon had the lead into the first corner, and a sizable one it was, with Adam Carroll eventually slotting into second place. It was a much more robust start to race 2, shall we say. Quite a few of the GT3 cars getting into each other, including there Marcus Clutton and Jamie Caroline, with the number 77 McLaren going ahead, and then Will Tregertha into the back of a delayed Phil Keane. As Keane spun, off went the podium finishing Fox Motorsport McLaren of Jamie Stanley from race number 1. This was the onboard view from Phil Keane, had a wobble, and then an even bigger one when the big Bentley got into the rear of the WPI Lamborghini. Damage to the Bentley and subsequent penalties have put it well out of contention. GT4, we saw the Audi of SRO Motorsport move ahead of the Newbridge Aston Martin, but then the first safety car of the race came out as Freddie Tomlinson got into Mo Ritson, and the Ginetta and the McLaren were in the barriers at Shell. After a 10-minute or so delay to get the barriers repaired and the cars out of the way, the surviving Paddock Motorsport McLaren was immediately on its toes. Martin Plowman diving up the inside of Lewis Proctor. He made the move at Old Hall, he defended it at Cascades, and that allowed the Team Parker Racing Porsche of Scott Mulvern to get in on the act as well. Speaking of Team Parker Racing Porsches, that was their GT4 example, trading a bit of paint with the R Racing Aston Martin, and then the rain arrived. It wasn't stopping the drivers from getting involved in some pretty close racing on track, but it all unfortunately came to an abrupt stop, quite literally for Jamie Caroline, who lost traction over Clay Hill and walloped the barriers. Then there was this collision as they came to the safety car with Sandy Mitchell into Marcus Clutton. With barrier damage and cars at the side of the road, the red flag was thrown.
Now, the cars that hadn't been allowed into the pit lane are now doing so. I don't want to sound like Auntie Admin here, but there's one other element to add into the restart of the race, and that is the pit stop penalties.
Yes.
Now, you can't do the pit stop penalties when effectively we're now not having pit stops.
Yes.
So they're going to be added on at the end of the race. So Jules Gounon and Ian Logie need to pull out a gap of 7 seconds. Whatever Sean Balfe does, he's got to get 10 seconds and so on. So it goes back to the good old days almost of aggregating times. You've got to add the 10, 7 and 5 for 3 cars in the 2 classes to the end of the race.
I'm not good at maths, David. This is going to get complicated.
No, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. But there is that to factor in as well. You can't do a pit stop penalty when there's no pit stop. So they'll add that on at the end of the race. We'll be asking questions later.
Makes perfect sense, though, because as I raised the subject 10 minutes ago, there will be people that win or lose from that situation because of the fact that some had served their penalties and some hadn't. So, yes, this is all taking a bit of time to unravel whilst we try and wrap our head around what's going on. Let's head down to Bryn so that we can have a bit of a rest. He's caught up, I believe, with Lewis Williamson.
Yeah, I might be a bit cross-eyed, though, because all this mathematics, Andy, has really confused me. I'm glad that Adders is across it all. But one man who had a great stint out there, it was a really good first session for you in this race, and I have to say it was looking really good until disaster struck.
Yeah, I mean, our aim in that race, starting P9, was to go forward. I said to James, you know, I'll try and get in the best position possible for you to jump in. Not having the success penalty was going to be nice. I think we were up to, I don't know, P4, P5, and a lot of cars started to go off there. So, I mean, it's so tough around here. Everyone's pretty well matched, very difficult to overtake. So, you know, we were hoping we could come out at the second part of the race there, but unfortunately we've got an engine leak, so well, an oil leak. So I think that's us done for the day, which is a bit of a sickener because James has done a phenomenal job. Team have done a great job. So you know, we'll come back at the next one stronger, and you know, I'm quite happy that we can come away from this race weekend with pace. It's always better to have the pace and not get the result than not have the pace and not have the result. So yeah, we'll be at Silverstone hunting.
But Lewis, it was looking so good. Do you know exactly what caused the problem, or is it going to be a case of wait until after the race?
Yeah, we'll get a look at the video and look at the data. You know, it's a pretty savage track for curb usage, so yeah, I hope it's nothing too bad, but we won't know until we get the floors off the car and inspect the engine, so let's see.
Have you spoken to your teammate? Have you spoken to James?
Yeah, I mean, James is just wanting to get in and race. He's a racer, you know. This is where he would have thrived in these conditions. You know, he's raced a lot of historics and done a lot of Goodwood stuff. So, I mean, this is when he would have shined massively in these conditions. So, I think now it'll probably dry a little bit. But, yeah, I was looking forward to seeing James getting in the car there. He's got phenomenal car control. So, yeah, it is what it is, I suppose.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks very much.
Cheers, Lewis.
Lewis Williamson then, pensive in the pit lane as he tries to work out exactly how this is going to work, but unfortunately for that car, there are issues as he documented. It perhaps won't matter all that much. This is the order as we have it at the moment. It likely won't be the order when we resume racing, but Jules Gounon for Ram Racing was classified as the race leader. Ewan Hankин moved into second, of course, with the Balf Audi heading into the pit lane. And Marcus Clutton, despite the collision with Sandy Mitchell, because it happened technically under safety car conditions, was allowed to reclaim his third place.
Yeah, that will be the order when we go racing, because that order is the lap before the pit window effectively opened, or before the pit stops happened, I should say. So that, I think, is the correct order ready for the restart. So the question mark in all of that is where 22 is going to be. And the answer to that still needs resolving, doesn't it? Because quite a long way down the order will be Adam Carroll 5th, because he would have lost places as he came into the pit lane on that lap. Because he would have had to slow, and so as he crossed the timing line, others would have overtaken him as he came into the pit lane. So that is the order at the end of the lap before the first pit stop happens. So that, I think, is correct as the order that we will go racing in, if that makes sense.
So it's before the first pit stop happened rather than the window opening then, because the window had been open a little while by that point, hadn't it? So, right, understood. Okay. That confusion sorted. So the last thing we need to know really is how this barrier repair work's going up at the top of the hill, because there's a good chance the Armco barrier will have moved. That needs to be straightened and re-secured. Then you've got to put the tyres back. Then you've got to put the Recticel barriers in front of it as well. Those Recticel barriers, though, we should have them at every corner of every circuit, because they really do soften the impact. And there you can see, actually, that is... It would appear the last thing that needs to be done. There are plenty of marshals and circuit workers and MSV officials up at that part of the track. It's those big foam barriers that cushion the impact. I mean, the speed at which that number 15 Mercedes went into the barriers, you know, 5-10 years ago, that would have been a write-off. But actually, it was a pretty soft, cushioned blow, and it's the barrier that very much comes off second worst. Right, we're waiting for further news on the track conditions. Let's head back down to Bryn in the pits.
One person that I think we'd all really wanted to see do really well here at Oulton Park is Phil Keane, and it was looking okay to start with, but Phil, it didn't end up okay. We're going to try and get the replay for you, but talk us through what happened.
Well, I think it was just destruction derby, wasn't it? I just got hit by the Merc and then hit by the Bentley, and round I went. So unfortunately, there wasn't a lot I could do about it. So the Merc hit me out of the way, and then the Bentley finished me off, and that's pretty much the end of it, really.
Lovely 360 though.
Yeah, but it doesn't really help us, to be honest. But you know, hopefully we'll make up some places with Michael now and score some points.
We're going to have a look at your onboard. So you can see the big melee ahead of you, and behind you had no idea really that it was going to happen. You're going to be poleaxed by the Bentley.
Yeah, well, I got hit by the Merc Healer from behind, which pushed me wide, and then the Bentley hit me again, and then that was it. So just managed to straighten the car up and get going as quickly as possible, really.
Talk us through what goes through your mind when that sort of thing happens, because the recovery, you have to kind of get back on it and you end up facing the right way, and you look around, there's 2 other cars with you.
I don't really look at the other cars around me, just kept my foot in, got the wheels spinning so I could get in the right direction, put the steering in the direction I wanted to go in, and off you go. Just luck, really, if you collect anyone on the way.
And what about the car itself? Does it still feel okay?
Yeah, car's fine, yeah, just a bit of damage on the rear, that's all, so it should be fine for Michael.
Great stuff. Well, look, you know, it's a real shame that you had to endure that, but fingers crossed for next time. Yeah. And you've still got the rest of the race to go.
Yeah, hopefully we can make up some places and score some points.
Good stuff.
Cheers, thank you.
Now, back to the restart. I was talking about the order as it stood at the end of 14 laps. We're actually going to go back to, Andy, you're quite right, before the window opened. It'll be a restart order from lap 10, which puts Audi number 22 back into the mix. Gethin Rees, who's the chief timekeeper, has just sent me the restart list from TSL, and it will be number 6 ahead of 22, and then 76, which is going to be Ewan Hankey in 3rd place. So the timing screen that we have at the moment has gone back to the last full lap completed by everybody, but for the restart, it'll be the order at 10 laps, which is the order on the last completed lap before the first pit window opened.
Understood,
okay,
yes.
Yawn with your mouth closed, please. But that's the plan, and it's going to be over, well, 30 minutes and 33 seconds on the clock. Now, if we do carry on with that, of course, it's going to be a safety car restart anyway, so the safety car will proceed, and then we'll release the cars as soon as the race director is happy. But as you say, the barriers are the key thing at the moment.
Yeah, but it looks like they're making decent progress with that, actually. It's something they're well versed with here at Oulton Park, is barrier repairs, and so I'm sure they'll be able to get the there you can see the work going on. So they're still perhaps putting some of the tyres in place. Now I think they've got the tyres done, but you can see just how much of the Recticel barrier was displaced by the errant Mercedes, and indeed it turns out a McLaren as well that had been off the road at the same part of the circuit. And the barriers therefore may well need repairing in 2 different locations on the run up over the top of Clay Hill and into the area past the water tower. And it looks like that's going to take at least another 5-10 minutes or so, you would imagine. But as I say, it's something they're used to doing here at Oulton Park. They'll have a system, they'll know how to do it, and crucial that they do it properly. If one car can go off there, well, 2 or 3 we've seen today, they need to make sure the barrier can withstand another car perhaps going off at the same point.
Yes, indeed, because if we do get another, effectively, 30 minutes of this, and that's your race to the flag, it's going to be elbows out, all a bit harum-scarum. There's a good old touring car adage about safety cars breed safety cars. The last thing the officials want is yet another drama, so you're quite right about the barriers. But we are in for a really intriguing 30 minutes with, in the majority of cases now, the so-called AM driver. There's a lot to look forward to. Now, Martin Plowman is currently with Bryn, and we heard from Calvin Fletcher pre-race. Let's hear from Plowy next.
Well, Martin, it's an unusual situation, isn't it, when a red flag happens during a pit stop? Are you fully across what's happening?
Very eventful, that's for sure. So yesterday, Saturday, we didn't have the greatest of qualifying, put us down in P14, but then we made a lot of changes to the car, and I just really put my bit between my teeth, and I really wanted to make amends for it. So I went super aggressive, made a few moves at the start, had a really good restart, got us into P7, and the heavens opened, and it was carnage. I said to guys, just leave me out, because it looked like the sun was still shining, and if it stopped raining, it could have dried up again. But then coming through Druids, I was taking it super easy, and it's like mega crossed up, like full on the lock stop, and I thought I was going to throw it in the wall. But let's see what Calvin can do now. We're in a good position.
I'm looking at the moment, you've got the wet tyre on though. Are you able to change that to the slicks, or are you going to continue with what you're on?
Yeah, so we've got a 3-minute window now, so I think we're going to be going to slicks, I think, but who knows? I think we're just going to flip a coin and just decide, because I can't call it. It was super greasy out there. There might be more rain on the way, so we don't know, but we're going to gamble, we're going to go to slicks and see what we can do.
And for yourself, you've got Kelvin sitting in the car for quite a while, so Kelvin's been in the car. He's got to keep his head on, hasn't he, Kelvin, for this long time. He's been sitting there, and he's got to get his head right straight away.
Yeah, and another thing as well, he's not seen the conditions. I've had a chance to see the conditions, so I've tried to relay that to him, but he's gone out there sitting, and obviously nerves are building, not knowing what's out there. Going out on a damn track in slicks for the first time, it's horrendous. I can't stress how hard that is, so I've just told him just feel his way into the race and just bring it home.
Martin, cheers.
Thank you.
Now, the race is set to resume. 25 minutes it will be, and the teams have been given a 3-minute countdown in which they can do what work they require, and that includes changing the tyres. So if you're on the wrong tyre, then effectively you're given a free pit stop. So now this is your 3 minutes to do what you have to do to get the cars back. They will go to the grid, it will be a safety car restart, it will be 25 minutes, and this 3-minute countdown is before the pit lane opens, and then the cars will make their way round to the grid. So 3 minutes of repair time, if you like, under certain championships terminology. It's 3 minutes of a countdown. You can do what now you need to do. Parc Fermé has ended, and then they will make their way out onto the circuit. It's a safety car restart, as I keep saying, and it will be from 10 laps, the order at the 10th lap of the race, before the first of the 2 pit windows opened. With me so far?
I think so. I'm gradually starting to understand this more and more as we get closer to the restart. 25 minutes, a good chunk of racing, and it's been shortened slightly then, about 8 minutes shorter, but it could have been a lot more had it not been for the brilliantly efficient work of marshals and the Oulton Park circuit staff to get that barrier fixed up at the top of Clay Hill and get the circuit raceable once more. So the queue starts to form at the end of pit lane. One presumes in the order that they will be taking the restart in. Makes sense to send them out in the right direction behind the new Lotus safety car, and this will take a little bit more organisation because of course it's not just the GT3s but the GT4s that need to be sent out in the correct order, and as you made the point, David, all on the same tyres. It is a level playing field, but with these success penalties to be added on at the end of the race.
I'm slightly confused as to why the clock has started leaving the pit lane rather than when the safety car leads them away, but anyway, the clock is ticking and most people are yet to leave the pit lane. Red flag has been shown again. Red flag has been shown again because the clock should not have started. So that starts when the cars leave the line, not the pit lane, and so the red flag is being shown because you can't have the race with only 2 cars on the circuit. So the clock has got to be reset, so they will be allowed from the pit lane. They're trying to get them in the right order, and then once they're on the circuit, then we can be in business. But for some slightly strange reason, the clock was triggered as cars went down the pit lane, which shouldn't have been the case. So 25 minutes when the race resumes. People are still, in some cases, doing their 3 minutes of work here.
Yeah, of course, and you'll wet tyres there coming off the WPI Motorsport car. A bit of a shame in a way that we got that red flag for many reasons, but it would have been quite nice to see who came out the best with that tyre lottery, because those that did gamble on wets would have had a short-term gain. But as we can see, the track is now bone dry half an hour or so later, certainly would have dried out by the end of the race, and those teams would have then been reeled in by the slick-shod cars through the last 10-15 minutes or so. So we don't get to see that, but what we do get to see is a complete reset with everyone back together on the track, all on the right tyres. And as you made the point, David, it is the AMs, certainly as far as any Pro AM or Silver AM entries that will be in the cars. And so those AM drivers are sat, for the most part, at the end of the pit lane behind the safety car, ready and waiting to head out onto the circuit. But we saw the kind of racing that these drivers gave us in the first half of race 1. And that's what we get again now in the second half of race 2. Ian Logie just sort of watching the world go by on the exit of pit lane, waiting, checking his mirrors. Go on, why aren't you here yet? I want to go racing, hurry up. But of course the teams have this 3 minutes in which to get everything done that they need to, and the marshals down in the pit lane, who've had very little to do for the last hour or so, are now busily trying to make sure that everyone's back in the same position. And that's not easy to do. One of those marshals may have a printed order in which the car should be in, but they won't all have that in front of them. So communication important amongst the marshals down there to make sure this is done right.
Can I fry your brain even further?
Oh, if you must.
Right, you know how the order for the restart is at 10 laps?
Yes.
And you know how our timing screen is saying 14 laps?
Yes.
That's how it's going to be, because the order is one thing, but the race was timed up to the red flag going out.
Right.
So the restart order is at 10 laps, but currently we have a race order based on 14 laps, and that will therefore change at the end of the first lap of the restart.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more.
Precisely. That is the correct answer, Andy. Well done. Thank you. It will be 25 minutes. It's Oulton Park. It's a bit wet and it's a lovely day. And we were enjoying in race 1 GT racing at its best. What we're enjoying now is the rule book at its finest and keeping everybody on their toes. That's the Harriet Chariot, the Ainsley Harriet-backed BMW, set to go back down the pit road. And that is now going to be taken over by Chris Solkeld, isn't it, for the second stint of the race.
Yeah, Solkeld back for his second season at Century Motorsport. New teammate this year, though, Tom Rawlings, and they are another one of these many silver combo of drivers. There is Kevin Say with his glasses on, the first ever Macanese driver in the championship, made his debut here last year. And yes, wearing the glasses inside of the helmet is relatively uncommon. Of course, World Rally Championship driver Jari-Matti Latvala famously did so, wore yellow-tinted sunglasses, essentially, to help him see. But
what about Thierry Neuville?
And indeed, Thierry
I thought
Neuville.
it was a Hyundai only. You'd have had it on your list. Come on.
That's 920, though.
Oh, okay.
I've got the bigger one. No, but you're absolutely right. Those very fashionable orange specs that Thierry wears. But no, not that common a thing, and that can present issues, particularly when you get low sunlight and that glare that you can get, especially in sort of 24-hour races and whatnot. Not an issue here, although this has felt like a 24-hour race at times. But Kevin able to see exactly where he's going, and we know is a quick driver. He's going to take the restart deep in the field, but he's proven already he can overtake.
Right, we are now in business. The safety car leads them around. The restart has notionally happened because the clock starts now when the safety car leads them out of the pit lane, and that is happening. So the race is resumed. 25 minutes, well, going to lose at least one lap. It might be two while the drivers are given a chance to feel what Oulton Park is all about. The pit lane largely empties. So what we now have is Ian Logie leading the way in this car that was started by Jules Gounon. In second place behind, it should be the order after 10 laps. Number 22, it is, which is now Sean Balfe. Third is 76, which is Mia Fluid. Fourth will be 77. That is the Morgan Tilbrook McLaren. Then it would have been number 15, John Ferguson, but that car can't take the restart. So 72 should be next in the queue, and that is the Adam Ballon green Lamborghini. Yep, so far, so good. I won't give you the rest because there are going to be one or two gaps within it, and it just gets ever more complicated. But what you have on the screen now, that track order, is the restart order. Don't worry about the gaps because we just carry on as though it's a long safety car period. This is the end of that safety car period, ready for the resumption, not restart, resumption of the race.
And of course in GT4, Stella Motorsport lead the way from Newbridge Motorsport behind. So the job here for Matt Topham in the Newbridge car, stay within 10 seconds of Richard Williams in the Audi, because Richard will have those 10 success seconds added on at the end of the race. Of course, Topham is an AM driver amongst silver drivers in the other GT4 cars, but we saw in race 1 more than capable of holding his own and even overtaking some of those silver graded drivers in his stint. So I fancy his chances of being able to stay within the 10-second window. That's certainly his target.
Ian Logie, as the race leader, has got to win this by 7 seconds. Now behind him is Mia Fluid, and without being unkind about this, Mia is not as quick as some of those around her. So he has an opportunity to try and pull out some of that gap while others are getting up and past her. Now, I say she's second, she's third now in the classification because of the restart order, second after 14 laps. So he's got to try and pull away from Sean Balfe, but Sean's got a 10-second penalty at the end of the race. Both of them, therefore, need to make hay while others get past Mia Fluid, if you're with me so far.
Yes, no, I understand perfectly. So, yeah, Sean Balfe. Well, Balfe versus Logie will be an interesting one because we never did get to see those two go wheel to wheel in the first race. It was only after Jules Gounon had jumped into the Ram racing car that it was up there fighting for the win. with the Balf Audi. So whether Balf might have something for Loggy here, certainly in qualifying yesterday he did, out-qualified Ian Loggy by quite some way, so there's every chance that we'll have a fight for the lead between those two, which could delay them and then allow the likes of Mia Fluid and Morgan Tilbrook and Adam Ballon to stay within that 7 or 10 second cushion as well. So that's going to be an intriguing battle between those two.
It is indeed. So then we will await confirmation, but I would hope the safety car might be able to come in this time. In a sense, the drivers have been given more of a heads up than they would have done under a natural race, because normally you're thrown into the car and out you go and you've got to perform. And here they've had 2 laps, if you like, just to get a feel for the car and for the track conditions. So the safety car will be in this time. You can't overtake until you get to the timing line, which is coming out of Deer Leap. So it doesn't matter how slow that car ahead of you is, you can't do anything about it until you've broken the timing beam and then the run down towards Old Hall Corner. 25 minutes to restart, but it's going to be about 19 at best by the time they actually get to the beam.
Yes, so a real sprint to the finish here then, with just under a third of the race to go then, and Ian Loggy with an important job to do here. If he can break away from Balf initially and try and spare himself from that battle for the lead with the Audi, then that would certainly help him an awful lot. Out of Druid's Corner they come then, Loggy backing up the pack, the safety car pulls away and will head to the pit lane very shortly. And now the drivers who have done their work can settle back and enjoy the show.
So Jules Gounod, who is no stranger to having to sit and watch co-drivers at work, does just that. Ian Loggy now controls the restart. So the Mercedes comes down towards Lodge Corner. He accelerates through that right-hander. The safety car peels in. We are back racing. The clock is just going to dip below 20 minutes as they break the timing beam now. We are back under green flag conditions. Mercedes leads, Audi second, and then it's battle on for third place. Mia Fluid coming under attack from Morgan Tilbrook, and then from Adam Ballon. There is the number 8 Richard Neary Mercedes trying to get up past Nick Jones in the Porsche, but remember the top 2 have got to try and break away from the car behind by 7 seconds in the case of Loggy, 10 in the case of Sean Balf.
Yeah, low tyre temperatures, maybe some damp patches on the road as well, so drivers being a little tentative on this restart lap, just trying to feel out the conditions. So far so good though, all cleanly through the first couple of corners. The leader Loggy getting away, Balf going with him. As we kind of anticipated, the bottleneck is for third here, with Mia Fluid trying to keep the similar McLaren of Morgan Tilbrook at bay. Then you've got Adam Ballon's green Lamborghini, Alex Maliakin's black and red Lamborghini, and yeah, Kelvin Fletcher in the Paddock Motorsport McLaren benefiting nicely out of that situation. He's right in the hunt, and we know, in the Bentley at least, he was always one of the quickest amps.
The best news for Ian Loggy is that Sean Balf is behind him, not only in terms of the fact that he's got nobody ahead, but he only has to pull out 3 seconds over the Audi. I'm talking about 7 for the Mercedes and 10 for that Audi in second place. But if that's the order when they get to the line, as long as Ian Loggy is 3 seconds ahead, then it's the job done. If it's anybody else behind, he has to pull out the 7.
Yes, indeed. So he will be making hay now whilst the sun very much does not shine, and his best friend right now is Mia Fluid, because she is keeping Morgan Tilbrook at bay, and I suspect off goes Maliakin. He spins coming out of Druid's Corner right in front of the pack. They all miss him, thankfully. Some good avoidance there from Nick Jones and Richard Neary in particular. Scary place to have a spin, but David, that's always the last bit of the track to dry out after a shower. There's always a bit of residual moisture under the trees, and I think it caught Alex out.
Indeed so, with the tyres still not up to temperature. We've heard all day about how hard the tyres are. Well, they've had a lot of time of not running, so even more dramas for the drivers. Now, the team manager of car 72, the Adam Ballon Sandy Mitchell Lamborghini, he's being summoned to race control, and Ian Loggy led at the end of that first racing lap by 1.3 seconds, so battle is on, as you see, for third place. Mia Fluid's doing a very good job of hanging on to that third place from Tilbrook, Ballon and then Kelvin Fletcher. McLaren's more numerous this year and looking competitive, with the Lamborghini striving to find a way through in GT4. It's still Richard Williams' car then, the Audi ahead at the moment with Matt Topham second.
And really getting away as well, because the Audi at the end of that first lap of racing again was about 4 seconds or so clear of Topham. Remember, needs to win that class by 10 seconds or more to retain the victory once the success penalty is added on. Here comes Tilbrook, weaving left, weaving right, can't find a way past Mia Fluid, who is holding on to this third place, but it's getting to be an even longer queue behind her through his lobs into Nickelbrook, on board with Adam Ballon here in the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini. Ahead is Tilbrook, behind is Kelvin Fletcher, who was looking very racy as they went through the top end of the circuit just now. And now they head past the scene of many an incident today, past the water tower into Druids Corner. And the positions stay as they were, but Tilbrook with a good exit from Druids might have a go here at Fluid, heading towards Lodge Corner. He's flashing the lights, he's looking to the inside line, but isn't quite close enough to launch an attack.
No, they're also being a little bit more cautious, maybe, the AMs, but Mia Fluid doing a really good job. Of course, we saw her go well in GT4 McLaren's a couple of seasons back, comes over the timing line. The traffic is forming up behind as they dive down towards Old Hall Corner then, and the race leading gap actually is coming down. So Ian Logie still ahead of Sean Balfe. That's good. As long as he's ahead, that's all fine, because he has less of a penalty, and the gap between the leader and their Mia Fluid in third place is 6 seconds. So another lap and he will be, if you like, the other side of the magic 7, but it then depends what happens in terms of people overtaking Mia Fluid and closing on these two. Sean Balfe is taking the fight to Ian Logie, that's for sure.
Yes, which means that Logie may shortly have to start defending, and that will lose them time relative to the cars behind. I know they're scrapping with each other, but so far Loggie's been able to get his head down and run his own pace. That is not the case anymore. The Balfe Audi right with him as they come out of the Britain chicane. A long, long gap back to third place. It's still Fluid, but again, Tilbrook is better through the chicane. He needs to almost back up the entry a bit more, carry a bit more momentum out of the corner to have the run over the hill. He's getting stuck behind the number 76 car and just can't quite get the overlap into the braking zone. Tilbrook whacks the curb through his lops. That won't do the suspension much good, and it won't help his speed through the corner either. Fluid staying ahead.
Indeed so, as the cars now make the climb up Clay Hill once more. This in real terms is lap number 19 now, and this is Adam Ballan's view. He's got those two McLarens scrapping ahead of him, but still Mia Fluid resolutely hanging on to third place on the road. In fourth there is Morgan Tilbrook, Ballan is fifth, sixth is Kelvin Fletcher, seventh in the background is Nick Jones in the Soul GT3 Porsche, but not for long, because diving up the inside line is Richard Neary, and Richard goes through, good pass on the inside. Then you've got Kevin Say, winner here last year in the Sky Tempesta 2C's run. Mercedes, he's going to be on the outside of the Porsche as they come out of Deer Leap. They're going to be side by side down to Old Hall. White Mercedes on the inside, blue Team Parker Racing Porsche on the outside. Job done. The Sky Tempesta Racing Mercedes AMG goes through, takes the place.
And now Graham Davidson brings the Rocket RJM McLaren through as well. So 3 places lost in quick succession there for Nick Jones. The Team Parker Racing Porsche not working perhaps all that well in these conditions and is starting to struggle. Right, gap between first and third is now 6.863 seconds. So by the end of this lap, Logie should be more than 7 seconds clear of Fluid, but right now that's the least of his worries. He needs to try and keep this Balfe Audi behind him. Of course, even if Balfe gets through, he's got to pull away to the tune of 3 and a bit seconds over the Mercedes to get the win, but right now he looks the quicker of the two.
72 Lamborghini there is going to be given a 10-second stop-go penalty for contact just as we've gone to safety car conditions. Remember, it was involved Sandy Mitchell at the wheel of it with the Marcus Classen McLaren that ironically now is ahead, and say number 72 is going to have to serve a 10-second stop-go penalty. Now, you were talking, Andy, a lap or so back about what was going on in GT4. Sorry again to go back to numbers, but bear in mind that not only does Richard Williams, as the leader of that category, have to serve the 10 seconds post-race, there's also an extra 14 because that's a silver.
Ah, yes, absolutely right. Well spotted. Now, we've lost Morgan Tilbrook. I think he went off through his lops. He was tucked up right behind Mia Fluid, and then suddenly the camera panned round and he wasn't there anymore. So I think Tilbrook is off the road at his lops, hopefully not in a dangerous position. Leaders back through. That relieves, of course, the pressure from Mia Fluid for the time being, but now she will have Adam Ballan behind. Ballan, though, has the stop-go penalty to serve, so that will then promote Kelvin Fletcher into fourth. Ballan is in, and Kelvin Fletcher in the Paddock Motorsport car that started 14th is knocking on the door of the podium.
And that's your answer to number 77. It's parked on the inside of Knickerbrook Corner. Some out of his lops peeled to the inside, and doesn't look like damage, so that seemingly is mechanical, as into the pits to serve the stop-and-go penalty is Adam Ballan. So the board is moved, the team will look at the stopwatch. Doesn't 10 seconds feel like a long, long time, even just watching it, never mind being in the car. And in a moment, the team will release Adam Ballan, and away he goes. The good news is he's at pit out. Now, this is the race lead battle. Now, remember, if Sean Balfe can get ahead of Ian Logie and pull away by 3 seconds, then he is looking good.
Yes, and if Kelvin Fletcher can get past Mia Fluid, then he may be looking good, because he's only 9 seconds off the lead, and I think he's quicker than Mia, but we've seen that Mia Fluid is capable of putting up a pretty stout defence. She kept Morgan Tilbrook at bay for a number of laps. What can Kelvin Fletcher do then? Former class champion within GT4, of course, Kelvin Fletcher, and looking to try and get himself into contention for a win here. They go past the Tilbrook McLaren, which looked like it was rejoining, actually. I wonder, we've seen him hitting those curbs through Hislop's. It was that part of the circuit that he pulled off.
Yeah.
I wonder if something broke over the curb. Pure speculation, but that is the area where the car went off the road.
I've come across worse theories. I'll buy into that for the moment. Let's see. Kelvin Fletcher then lines up for a go. You've also got Richard Neary looking really courageous as well on the inside in the green Mercedes. Oh, I thought that was going to be contact. So did you, didn't you? Yes. But anyway, they just about avoided each other. And now look, Richard Neary under attack from the Kevin Say Mercedes. Can he do another Oulton Park win? I think it's a bit unlikely with 11.5 minutes to go. But if he can get through the traffic and get within 10 seconds of the lead group, or 7 seconds of the leading car, he's got a chance. Off the road has slithered number 65 now, which is Jamie Oulton. That's on the exit of Knickerbrook, and he's got to get the Cayman back in the right direction, which he has done, thank heavens.
Phew, right, OK. I almost thought he'd get bogged down in the gravel there, but did get going again. Loggy to Balf half a second. Loggy to Fluid in third is now 8.8. So just to clarify, if the checkered flag went out now, then Loggy would be the winner, even with success penalties added. Now, this is what happened to Oulton. He's battling away here with the Toyota of Tom Edgar ahead of him, and the Mustang behind, and Marco Signoretti, who goes up the inside at Knickerbrook. Biff, off goes the Porsche. Not much, really, that Oulton could do there.
No, and if you're going to get biffed by a Mustang, it's a biff, isn't it?
Yes. Because
it's a big old unit. That right, Mia Fluid under attack. Calvin Fletcher goes for the inside at Hislop. Surely he's going to get the job done this time. Yes, he does. Calvin Fletcher goes third. Right now, he is 9.4 seconds back from the leaders, and he's got to be within 7 seconds of the leading car. He's got 10 minutes in which to bring down that gap. So on the corrected times, if you like, this could be a win for Calvin Fletcher and Martin Plowman, and that would be a remarkable result given how downbeat both of them were really pre-race.
Brand new car. The McLaren could not be any more different than the Bentley Continental that they've had success with before, and now here he is into third place. Now, what is the gap to the race leader? That is the key. He will have lost time overtaking Mia Fluid, but now released into clean air. Can he get the gap down? The leaders have gone through. Fletcher is 9.3 back. He needs to gain 2.3 seconds on the race leader, and then he will be in a race-winning position. He's got just under 10 minutes in which to do it, and he needs to hope that Richard Neary gets stuck behind Mia Fluid here, because Neary possibly is the quickest of this bunch. He's stuck behind the 76 car for now. If he clears the McLaren, though, then Fletcher could have company.
The Morgan Tilbrook car, I understand from Bryn, is an electrical drama. He's had to perform a reset, and that might clear it. The team manager of the number 61 Academy Motorsport Mustang is being summoned to the race director.
Wonder why.
Exactly, that's under the no kidding Sherlock heading, I think, isn't it? As the race leaders then, with 9 minutes and change on the clock, bounce over the curb coming out of Britain, the old Fulston chicane, up over Hilltop now. And just as Adam Carroll was able to keep Jules Gounon at bay, Ian Loggy is trying to return the favour, isn't he now, to Sean Balfe. They are close, and it looks as though the Audi is the quicker because the gap has come down. This is the GT4 leading car on the road, but remember, it's got 10 seconds to be added post-race for winning race one. It's got 14 seconds to be added as well for being a silver entry.
Which at the moment would not be enough, so it looks like the Newbridge Motorsport car would inherit the win, but of course it has pressure from the number 90 of Jack Brown, which is flashing its lights there, the yellow and black and white number 90 BMW challenging here for second on the road, but it could be for the race win. At the GT3 end of the field, by the way, Fletcher about 3 or 4 tenths quicker than Loggy so far on this lap, so he's going after the leading two and trying to bring that gap down. The GT4 field at the top of the circuit. Are the GT3s going to catch the GT4s before the end of the race? It'll be touch and go, 8.25 minutes to go, and they're about half a lap apart.
Okay, you might get 1 or 2 of the stragglers. Ian Loggy led over the line last time by 4 tenths of a second. So this is the on-the-road leader in Pro-Am in GT4, Matt Topham, having taken over from Darren Turner. But as I say, with all of these extra penalties to be applied post-race, their GT4 really is going to take some unravelling. Now, the Mustang is going to be given a 10-second stop-go penalty after the race, so that penalty will be added on, as will its success and silver penalties, so it'll all add up for that car as well.
Okay then, right, down to Lodge Corner comes this fight for second place in GT4. You can see that Academy Mustang in the background, which is a shame for them because the car looks pretty competitive in this race, but that penalty is going to take them well and truly out of the equation. Through they go across the start-finish line then, and Matt Topham comes through second in the GT4 category. And yep, 8 seconds that is off the race leader in GT4, which is more than enough for the Aston, which is success penalty free to inherit the lead, but the number 90 car is also not carrying a success penalty, nor the Toyota. So this perhaps is the fight for the win in GT4. They couldn't be closer, and actually I think it's Edgar in the Toyota that's catching the two ahead.
Yes, I think you're right about that. Matt Topham then in the Aston Martin, keeping number 90 BMW at bay. But don't forget that the BM and the Toyota are going to have to cop 14 seconds because they are silver entries, whereas the Pro-Am Aston doesn't. So actually, Matt Topham could afford to let them go, just sit on their tail rather than have to defend here.
Right, back to GT3s here. Fletcher 8.2 off the lead now. Okay. He's getting there, only needs another 1.2, 1.3 seconds. I think Kelvin Fletcher might actually be able to do this. It's not going to be a fight wheel to wheel on the track, but the timing screen making for very entertaining viewing right now. You're right, I'd completely forgotten about the exactly what you just told me about the silver extra time for the silvers. So yeah, Matt Topham in a good position here, doesn't need to take any big risks. It looks like being another strong result, and just what they needed really after that penalty sort of robbed them of a race win in race 1.
Now we have an incident to be investigated after the race between number 8, the ABBA Racing Mercedes, and 93, the Sky Tempesta Racing Mercedes. If you're watching this on the internet, if you're watching this from home, then you really ought to have another screen with the TSL live timing on it, because it is absolutely crucial right now, and it will confirm what Andy has been saying, that Kelvin Fletcher's last lap was a 36.5 and the two leaders are doing 37, so the McLaren is catching the top two, and if he gets within 7 seconds of Ian Loggy, even if he's third on the road, the win is his because of the success penalty from race 1. Can't be served in the pit stops, it's got to be added on at the end. So if you're within 7 seconds of the leading Mercedes, you're going to win the race. And there is Ian Loggy, who comes down towards Lodge Corner. I'm sure that the message will come through from Ram Racing, Dan Shufflebottom's team, to push, 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 and Ian is trying to do that. But right now, let's see what the lap times are. That's better, actually. That's from both of them. Takes them back into the 36s, so the game is being upped by the top two.
Fletcher across the line, 8 seconds the gap. He's in second place already, notionally, because he was within 10 seconds of Balf's Audi, which has a go look on the inside at Cascades Corner. There you can see is the progression there. Ever since Fletcher got ahead of Mia Fluid, he's been consistently quicker than the two leaders. As you mentioned, wasn't quite as much quicker than them on the previous lap, but now look, the leaders hit traffic.
Indeed, and he only took just under 2/10 out last time. The traffic they have dealt with, of course, Kelvin Fletcher has to deal with as well. Now, in part, how much traffic do you get on the last lap? You know, if the traffic goes against the leaders on the last lap or goes against Kelvin Fletcher, that's going to be significant into the outcome of the race. No question about it. We have got just 4 minutes and change on the clock. Got to say, Mia Fluid is doing an outstanding job, is she not? Hanging on to 4th place ahead of Richard Neary, Kevin Say, then Graham Davidson going well in this second race, having taken over from James Kell. 61, the Mustang confirmed, 40 seconds to be added in lieu of a stop-go penalty at the end of the race. Mia Fluid with a whole traffic jam of cars behind, but it's all eyes on Kelvin Fletcher. In the first sector, he's quicker than Ian Loggy by 4/10 of a second. In the second sector, he's quicker than Ian Loggy by 9/10 of a second. This is game on for Kelvin Fletcher.
That should do it then. He needed a second. He's taken over a second, but look, now he's got the Team Brit McLaren in the way, and that will have cost him a bit of time through Druids Corner. Worth mentioning, by the way, the 3 cars directly behind Mia Fluid, they're the top 3 silver AM runners in GT3. So Richard Neary, Kevin Say, and Graham Davidson fighting for their own class win, and they're all bottled up behind the McLaren. Across the line he goes. Oh, 7.143 is the gap. He's a 10.5 away from the race lead. Here is Kelvin Fletcher with, what, 2 or maybe 3 more laps left to do it. Mistake there for Fluid. Here comes Richard Neary. There's a back marker in front as well. Side by side in the background. Neary's gone through. Through goes Kevin Say as well, and Graham Davidson goes round the outside too. What a shame.
But in a sense, perhaps that was inevitable. That was the cork in the bottle that sooner or later was going to pop. And now Mia Fluid gets held up in GT4 traffic as well, so she's on the wrong line. Others will come streaming past. Right, so to pick up on Andy's point, Kelvin Fletcher needs to find 0.144 of a second to win by 1,000th of a second at the end of the race, and the way that he's going suggests that that is going to happen, because he's taken 2/10 out in the first sector alone.
Yes, so that does it, but he's been underneath that 7-second window at one point. You've got to be there at the line on the last lap. No good being there within the end of sectors 1 or 2. Clears the BMW over the top of the hill with very little in the way of delay. Drops into the Hislop chicane, third on the road, so desperately close to getting first place though on corrected times, if you like, once those penalties are added.
But this also is a real test of Kelvin Fletcher, because he's now being told by the team, push, push, push. He can see the cars ahead. He can't afford to make any mistakes. It is a new car to him. They've been struggling to get their heads around the new tyre, and he is doing an absolutely fantastic job in what, in a sense, is the most pressured drive he's had yet in his racing career. Down towards the Lodge corner he comes, turns through the right-hander. So 7.1 seconds last time. If he's within the 7 seconds, then effectively he is the race leader with 2 laps to go, and he's 5.7 seconds back now. So this, on corrected time, is the race leading car. These two are almost in danger of holding each other up now.
Yeah, because Loggy is watching his mirrors, I think, and his lap times are showing it. He's into the mid 1 minute 37s now. So Fletcher then chasing them down, and at the moment is within the 7 second window. Also worth noting, Richard Neary is within 10 seconds of Balfe. He too could get within 7 seconds of the Loggy Mercedes, so it could be that Balfe ends up off the podium here, and Loggy could end up down in third.
And Sean Balfe will say, well, I would have done better, but I was being held up by the Mercedes. But Ian Loggy does not seem to be able to really do much to pull away, even though he knows that now he's effectively lost the race lead. Leads on the road. When they come across the timing line at the end of the race and the penalties are added, we will see how that all unravels. It's not just where Ian Loggy drops to, it's where Sean Balfe drops to, but now they're coming up on traffic. Now, if they make a better way through that than Kelvin Fletcher does when he comes across it, that's going to be significant. So it's not a done deal yet. There's going to be one more lap to go at the end of this as they approach the GT4 cars.
Yeah, they need to clear these GT4s as soon as possible, give themselves the best chance to then pull back away, and as you say, hope that Fletcher gets them on the last lap. They're also, of course, fighting for track position themselves. If Balfe gets half a chance to get ahead of Loggy here, he definitely will. And the group of cars they're catching is the fight for second place, which will become the fight for the lead in GT4. Didn't we have the situation in race 1 and it all kicked off, albeit halfway through the race? This ain't over yet.
Right, we're on the last lap then, and Kelvin Fletcher is 4 seconds behind the on-the-road leading Mercedes, so on corrected times, Kelvin Fletcher is going to win. There is more traffic to get through, and Ian Loggy runs almost deep into the side of number 51 Porsche there, which causes Ben Heathering to bail out of the way. He was indicating that he was going to move, but Ian Loggy on a mission to try to come through. That Mercedes does not seem to be as comfortable in this afternoon's cooler conditions compared to this morning. It's still all happening in GT4 up the road, and Kelvin Fletcher is going to close even further on these two because they have not yet got through this wall of GT4 traffic.
But he's going to have to get past it in the final sector, isn't he? This could all unravel for the Paddock Motorsport car. At the moment, he's gaining. He could yet lose out before the lap is over. Through Britons they go. We've got the GT4 cars ahead. That's the R Racing number 23 car, I think, on the tail of Marco Signoretti's Ford Mustang, which has this penalty to be applied. To the outside goes Loggy, flashing of the lights, trying to cut across in front of Signoretti. Does it, and gaps the Audi.
And that could be significant because he's able now to at least try and get into that GT4 traffic. Remember, number 42 is still leading that class, but with all the penalties to add. Right, Kelvin Fletcher, we know he's on target to at least gain over the Audi on the corrected times. The GT4 battle rages on. That will all have to be unravelled post-race with the success penalties to be applied. So there's one more corner to go. Ian Loggy leads the way. The more back markers that Kelvin Fletcher has to get through, the better it will be for the Mercedes, but it's not 7 seconds worth. Checkered flag is at the ready. We'll keep an eye to not only the order over the line, but how that changes with the penalties when they come through. So heading up towards the line, Ian Loggy wins on the road, but on corrected times, Kelvin Fletcher takes the win from Ian Loggy. No, Richard Neary will go second. Then Kevin Save for third, Graham Davidson fourth, and Ian Loggy's 7 seconds drop him to fifth, and it's sixth for Sean Balfe. So Paddock Motorsport have had the most extraordinary win. Martin Plowman can't believe it. Kelvin Fletcher, the drive of his life. Now, while all that has taken the flag, Andy, GT4's got another lap to resolve itself.
Yes, because the top 3 on the road did not get lapped, so they are still circulating. Leading on the road, remember, is the Richard Williams Audi. There it is, right on cue. Starting this final lap of the race then, Richard Williams in 16th place overall had not a massive cushion, actually, over the rest of the GT4 runners, did he? So, in fact, Williams because the penalty is being applied after the flag, technically, has actually dropped behind the 27 car on corrected times, even though they've not seen the flag. There is the 27 car then. Matt Topham and Darren Turner do look as though they're going to get a race victory here at Oulton Park in GT4. They didn't manage to do it after their penalty in race 1, but a tense and immensely stressful final 20 minutes or so. Looks like they're going to survive it for the race win.
Yeah, Matt Topham, good effort, but Richard Williams, I mean, yeah, they were always up against it with the penalty anyway, never mind the way that it had to be applied with that red flag situation. The Bentley there, after its assorted penalties, is on target for 25th place overall. So the Audi number 42 comes to the line. It will win the class on the road, but on corrected times will confirm GT4 in a moment, because that is about to become a win for Matt Topham, with Jack Brown behind him. There they are, they go across the line. So yes, GT4 is confirmed as being won by the Aston Martin. Second is going to be BMW number 90, and the number 42 Audi falls to third in GT4 because of the silver penalty, and it's 10 seconds for winning the first race. And if your brain is not scrambled with rules and penalties and corrected times now, well, good on you, because there's a lot to consider out of all of that. This time the cars go straight to Parc Fermé, and everybody involved goes for a cold shower.
2 races I will never forget today in the British GT Championship. What a way to start this 30th season in the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. Races I won't forget for very different reasons. The first one, an all-out fight on the track between some of the best drivers in the world in GT3 racing. Race 2, for all of the trials and tribulations, we still ended up with some brilliant on-track action there. Kelvin Fletcher working his way up through the GT3 order. That move he made on Mia Flirt was crucial. That's what won him the race, really. It got him that clean air and allowed him to chase after the top 2. And then, like you say, it turned into a good old-fashioned handicap race almost.
But even with clear road ahead of Ian Loggie for the bulk of that stint, he could not bring down his lap times, could not get away from the Audi. And that's, again, part of the story. That's partly why the Paddock Motorsport McLaren was able to win, because the Mercedes just could not use its tyres as well in these cooler late afternoon conditions, seemingly.
I'll take you back to qualifying session 1 yet on Saturday, where Ian Loggie qualified at the back of the top 10, and yet, of course, Sean Balfe was on the front row of the grid. So we know that Balfe's had the pace advantage over Loggie this weekend. The Audi's really working well. The Mercedes worked well in Jules Gounon's hands, but Ian perhaps struggling a bit for confidence around what is a real confidence-driven circuit.
So let's have a look then at the provisional result. It is a win for Kelvin Fletcher and Martin Plowman, with in second spot Sam Neary and Richard Neary. Kevin Say and Chris Froggatt take third, and then it's Graham Davidson and James Kell fourth. Jules Gounon and Ian Loggie with their success penalty classified fifth, ahead of Adam Carroll and Sean Balfe sixth. Recovering after a lap 1 spin for seventh, Michael Igoe and Phil Keane. Alex Malikian, who was off the road with James Dorlin, eighth, ahead of Mia Fluid and Ewan Hankey, and 10th, Jamie Stanley and Nick Halstead. A bit of an anonymous race 2 for that partnership compared to race 1. Now, the GT4, outstanding battle there, and Matt Topham and Darren Turner take the win. A Pro-Am entry wins GT4 outright over the Silvers. The best of the Silvers, 15th overall, which was Will Burns and Jack Brown. And then third in GT4, Richard Williams and Senan Fielding. So a win and a third. Ain't a bad day at the office. Good for points in the championship. Fourth in GT4, Jack Mitchell and Tom Edgar in the Speedworks Supra, ahead of Ben Hetherington and Ross Wiley. Right, let's hear from race winners then. Martin Plowman and Kelvin Fletcher take honours in a rather confused race 2, and they are with Brit.
Joe, Kelvin's just been doing his hair. You look wonderful, Kelvin. You look wonderful. I don't think you knew you'd won that race, did you?
I didn't know. My radio's been playing up all weekend, so when Chitty was saying, I was thinking, what's he on about? Can you say that again? Can you say that again? So I presumed there'd been some sort of penalties, but no, it was, yeah, I felt good that. It felt really good. The conditions are pretty tricky initially, but yeah, the car felt mega, so.
Car felt mega, Martin. I mean, that had everything, didn't it?
Yeah, what a way to end the weekend. I mean, we didn't have the best of starts, and then starting down in 14th place, just woke up with a fire in my belly today, and I had to send it. Handed the car over in P7, and then what a drive. That is the best I've ever seen him drive, and just a complete package, man. He put moves out there in fast laps, and the instructions were given him. We've got to chase down the leaders because they had a pit stop penalty, but he nearly won on track.
You know, you had a podium last year in the Bentley. How's this rate?
It just feels like as Plowy always says, it's all about the journey, not the destination, and just, yeah, it's mega.
And Martin, your boys watching as well, must mean a lot to you as well.
Yeah, this probably ranks up there, you know, top 3 races of all time. This is unbelievable, especially with our own team. you know, the amount of hard work in the off season to get to this point, it's just unreal. So this is a massive thank you to all of these guys behind me. So can't believe it.
Before the tears, well done.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Brilliant stuff, and a first British GT Championship outright win for Martin Plowman and Kelvin Fletcher. What a way to do it.
They'll not forget that one in a hurry, will they? Yes, they've won some Pro-Am races in GT4 a few years ago in the Beach Dean Aston Martin, but their first ever outright class win, and what a way to do it. And their local circuit, I suppose, at least as far as British GT races are concerned. Yeah, they're going to remember that one for a long time. And they can be really proud of the way they did that. They dealt with, Plowman dealt with the really difficult conditions, didn't throw it down the road when it started raining before the pit stops. And then, yeah, Kelvin Fletcher, who wasn't even fully aware of what the situation was, just knew he had to keep pushing, keep trying to catch the cars ahead, and in the end managed to put himself inside that crucial 7-second window, well inside it as well, by the time they reached the flag.
Well, a great race when it was racing. It's just a shame that we had all of those interruptions, and in so many ways it was the complete opposite, wasn't it, of the opening race where we were praising driving standards and what a great race it had been. But partly it was the weather that scuppered that, but again, it was what it was, and it certainly gave us plenty to talk about. That second stint, the way the penalties had to be applied, they're normally just, again, to make the point, served in the pit stops. Because there was no effective pit stop, you had to apply them post-race, which is why we were talking about these corrected times. Well, it's not like the next round of the championship is going to confuse us on strategy. It's a mere 3 hours at Silverstone with 3 regulation pit stops, which is always a real highlight, because it's the one race where the teams can do different things on the strategy, and it's only in the last bit that you really start to see who has made that correct call. So there's that to look forward to, but we'll hear from more of our podium finishers across the 2 categories very, very shortly. But as ever, the Intelligent Money British GT Championship has delivered. I mean, there are so many positives to take out of this year, and on the evidence of a real topsy-turvy weekend, and it's full of surprises, then, we're in for a really wide-open season, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, hype is a dangerous thing, I find, generally in motorsport, and there was a lot of it around ahead of this season, but on the evidence of what we've seen today, it's more than living up to it. We've seen some great competition, no shortage of action on the track. We didn't have 2 60-minute processions with no one able to overtake, far from it. And now we head, as you say, to the Silverstone 500, which is always one of my favourite races of the season, not just because it's on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, which I love, but also because we have, as you said, that pit strategy. No set pit windows. You can pit whenever you like, as long as you do it 3 times. Right, let's head back down to Brian, who's with the Nearys.
Well. Second.
Yeah, second. Yeah, that's a surprise, isn't it?
A surprise for you?
Yeah, just a bit, yeah.
What was going on for you, Sam?
Yeah, my race was just, it's a pro race, you can't pass, and the rain came down, we killed the pits, and I thought we made a great call, and then the red sort of ruined our advantage we got, but all hats off to Rich. He's done incredible this weekend. His qualifying and then the race pace was just awesome.
As the race went on, did you start realising what was happening out there?
Yeah, the team kept me informed of where I was and what I needed to do. I was struggling to pass the McLaren that was in front of me, and I knew that I had to get past that and get up the road by, I think, about 4 or 5 seconds or something in order to overtake the pit stop penalty to the other cars. So once I cleared the car, they went, right, you need 3 seconds and you've got 2 laps, push. So I couldn't drive that thing any quicker than that.
Amazing stuff. Look, well done. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, mate.
So the Nearys end up in second place, and that's another of the big surprises of the weekend. The drivers making their way now for the podium, and they're the overall race winners, being told of their successes. And a delighted Martin Plowman and Kelvin Fletcher getting ready to be called forward onto the podium. Remember, we have the GT3 as well as GT4, and of course the Silver and Pro-Am within each. Right, let's go back down to Park Fairmay and rejoin Bryn.
So, fifth, first. I said it, didn't I? First.
Yeah, it worked out well, that. It threw everything at us. And, at the beginning of the race, when the rain started to come down, when the pit stop window opened, it was nice. I had the Audi in front, and I could see where the conditions were at the time, so it makes it a bit easier if you're the following car at that point. And then it was unfortunate with the red flag, but then Matt jumped in and did a great job in that second stint, just to go out there when the track's not perfect, and to stay on the track, even staying on the track, but with great pace, so very happy with that. It's nice to get a good result.
It really is. And Matt, you had to sit there for quite some time and stay composed.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know what was happening, then we knew what was happening, then I needed a wee, so I ran to the toilet, and then I didn't know if we were getting in the car, it was all up in the air, but yeah, I got in the car, I felt quietly confident, but I knew that these silvers would be bringing it, and Jack pushed me every lap he was there, and I just had to get in his way. I knew all I had to do was get in his way. The GT3 BMW was just crazy in the way for the first couple of laps, and Rich snuck past, and I was like, oh, bugger, but yeah. Somehow we managed to keep that gap, and here we are.
It worked out brilliantly for you, and it worked out pretty well as well for these guys, Sky Tempesta. Now, Kevin, if I come to you first of all, this is pretty good for you around here.
It's not bad around here, huh? It's just by chance that last September I was around UK, and now in April I'm also around UK, so Oulton Park seems like to be my my favorite track.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. It wasn't bad for you either.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of fun today. The first race wasn't as good as we hoped. A couple of penalties, like a few other cars, you know, with track limits. But yeah, there are no expectations actually for this race because it started back of the grid. But we managed well, made a few places in my stint, and Kevin did the rest. So yeah, it was good.
Together, you got yourself a nice third. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the drivers now making their way ready for the podium, and there are the third-placed drivers making their way forward, Kevin Say and Chris Froggatt. Kevin, as we've been saying, a winner here last season, a podium this year, and he's becoming an Oulton Park specialist, really, isn't he? And Chris Froggatt has hardly done any miles around Oulton Park, so a really good result for the pair of them, as there for second place, Sam Neary, following Father Richard up to the second step. Richard already wants to get at the champagne, because that, a bit like the overall winners, was a result that came out of nowhere. But a first ever Intelligent Money British GT Championship win goes to Paddock Motorsport and the two team owners, Martin Plowman and Kelvin Fletcher. Fantastic effort by the pair. Yes, I know that it was partly all to do with penalties and corrected times and the like, but the way that Kelvin was driving, the pace in a brand new car to him was absolutely outstanding, and a great job done. Trophies held aloft. The rain has restarted at Oulton Park just as well as the drivers are about to get soaked by champagne, so they don't have to tell the difference in the end. They're going to get wet either way. But celebrations there, trophies fall over because in all the zealotry to get the champagne opened, a bit of fancy footwork resulted in a trophy disappearing from Martin Plowman's ownership. But Kelvin Fletcher and Martin Plowman, who own the team, have made a really formidable driving combination. And if you think Kelvin Fletcher is that actor bloke off the telly that does a bit of race driving, then you do him a disservice. He's a very accomplished racing driver, and he's just proved it absolutely perfectly.
Yeah, formerly raced in the British Touring Car Championship and didn't necessarily get to show his talents all that well there, but moving over to GTs really suited him. I think the Pro-Am formula helps him. I think the longer races help him as well. He's got time to settle into the races. And yeah, he has been a real force to be reckoned with ever since he switched into GT racing.
Now then, Adam Carroll and Sean Balfe have 5 points of an advantage over Ian Logie and Jules Gounon in the championship, who in turn are 5 up on Kelvin Fletcher and Martin Plowman. Michael Igoe and Phil Keane are next ahead of the Nearys, then Jamie Sanley and Nick Halstead, with Graham Davidson and James Kelv next, 7th overall, after just 1 point scoring result. Then it's Ewan Hankey and Mia Fluid. So we've done the overall GT3 podium, and now the Silver Ams step forward, with the Nearys set for the top step this time around, and there the trophies being presented. And a very happy partnership indeed. Dad and lad score class wins at Oulton Park. Kevin Say and Chris Froggatt for second place in class. And Graham Davidson and James Kell, from a non-finish earlier on in the day, end up 3rd in race 2. And again, points for the championship. Bit of a get-out-of-jail-free card, that, for James Kell, certainly. Graham Davidson not anticipated to do the whole season.
Yes, indeed, he's here because Simon Watts can't race with us this weekend, but James Kell, what a baptism of fire that was. His first ever weekend racing in GT3, having, of course, raced the Rocket RJN GT4 car last year. It was only about 3 or 4 years ago he started his racing career in Mazda MX-5s, and at club level. He was good, don't get me wrong, but even I didn't expect to see this sort of meteoric rise up into the British GT3 Championship within that short space of time.
James Kell, who raced a couple of years the Toyota Supra, seemed to struggle in that. But actually, since he's gained a bit more mileage, a bit more seat time, and certainly in McLaren's GT4, now GT3, he's looking very, very handy indeed. And so we turn our attention next to the overall GT4 situation, where third, the race one winners, Senna Fielding, and there behind him, Richard Williams, step forward onto the podium for second place. And again, the result over the line corrected with these success penalties to be applied. Will Burns and Jack Brown, bit downbeat after race one with the brake issues on the BMW. So again, a good result, good turnaround for the second race. But Matt Topham and Darren Turner step forward as the overall GT4 class winners. Another excellent job done by a really good partnership. Those two work really well together. There's all that experience of Darren Turner, you know, Le Mans class winner, and you know, the list of successes goes on. And he's able to impart that knowledge to guide Matt Topham, who gets better and better all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they finished fourth in the championship last year with a couple of race wins, and that was with not even entering the opening round and then having 2 non-finishes in the second half of the season. So if they can put together a consistent full season campaign, they're going to be one of the top teams in GT4, especially and perhaps mainly because of Matt Topham's pace relative to some of the silver drivers that he regularly is racing out on track. So the fact that he can hold his own means that then when Turner gets in the car, he's not that far down the order, and they're almost always in the conversation for the win come the end of the day.
And so Darren and Matt will be back again in a moment as the winners of GT4 Pro-Am, won't they? So they won overall, thanks because of the penalties. So don't go too far, chaps. Say the organisers of the championship, because we need you in a moment for the next podium, the last podium. But yeah, plenty to discuss at the end of what has been a really good day's racing. And I know we've had those incidents and that red flag, but when the cars were racing, there was some great racing to look forward to. And so for Team Brit, second in GT4 Pro-Am, Bobby Crandley and Aaron Morgan make their way to the podium, which is still being swept of corks and broken champagne bottles. There's no dry line on the podium anymore. But Matt Topham and Darren Turner return for a class win within a category win. Trophies go for Team Brit for another second, and a second win in Pro-Am. There's an awful lot of silverware going the way of Darren Turner and Matt Topham. Great effort.
Yeah, and a point on Team Brit as well. I know that it's a de facto pair of podiums, being that there were only 2 Pro-Am cars racing today, but they got to the end of both races. They didn't crash the car. They didn't have any mechanical issues. And for those two, it's all about learning and getting that seat time and gaining not just speed, but confidence out there. This is, as I said, after race 1, a massive step up for those two. And really happy to see them getting to the end of the 2 races. And we've hardly mentioned them, which I think actually is not always a bad thing. You know, there have been other people that have been off in the scenery, not the Team Brit car, but it's going to take some going to compete for Pro-Am victories against Darren Turner and Matt Topham. This is how the GT4 Championship looks then. Richard Williams and Senna Fielding, a really strong day, despite the fact they missed out on that race 2 victory. They're 5 points clear of Darren Turner and Matt Topham in the GT4 title race, with a then tie for second place. Jamie Day and Josh Miller for our Racing are joint third with Jack Brown and Will Burns. Will Burns, the reigning GT4 champion for Century Motorsport. Then Benji Hetherington and Ross Wiley in the Beluga Porsche, rounding out the top 5 in GT4 points. So that is how the GT4 Championship looks then. It's been a hugely entertaining, eventful, unpredictable, dramatic day of racing here at Oulton Park. Let's remind ourselves of what happened in race 2. Well, it all seems like a long time ago now, but the race got underway with Jules Gounon's Ram Racing Mercedes on pole, and he took a commanding lead into turn number 1. After a clean start in race 1, the pros were getting their elbows out at the start of race 2, with 1 or 2 having moments through the first corners, including Phil Keed, who had contact from the 2C's Mercedes and then from the SRO Motorsport Bentley that sent him into a spin. The Bentley was off with damage, and the Fox Motorsport McLaren delayed as well. In the GT4 ranks, as close as you like, a bit too close here between the Assetto Ginetta and the Paddock Motorsport McLaren, which both went into the barriers, and that brought out a safety car. The surviving Paddock McLaren, though, was on the move. It was Martin Plowman in the car. He got past Lewis Proctor, and that opened the door for the Team Parker Porsche to come through as well. Their GT4 example, meanwhile, was making very close acquaintances with the R Racing Aston Martin. Then came the rain. There was some fearsome action on track, but the conditions were far from ideal, and and eventually it all went wrong for the number 15 Ram Racing Mercedes, which rammed the barriers up at the top of Clay Hill. Then there was contact between Sandy Mitchell and Marcus Clutton behind the safety car, for which Mitchell was later penalised. The red flag came out so the barriers could be repaired, and then confusion set in. Eventually, everyone went back onto the circuit with slick tyres for a 25-minute conclusion of the race. But with success penalties to be added for cars post-race, it meant the race result was always in question. The R-Racing Aston Martin got elbowed out wide by the Speedworks Toyota, but there were two cars moving through the pack, the number 11 McLaren and the number 8 Mercedes. The cork in the bottle was the number 76 McLaren of Mia Fluid, who was hanging on resolutely to third place, the first of the cars that wouldn't have success time added on after the race, and that essentially became the fight for the race win. Off went the Team Parker Cayman at Knickerbrook Corner. In the GT4 category, it was the Newbridge Aston Martin that would come out on top when all was said and done, whilst Ian Loggy fended off Sean Balfe for the entire duration of the 25-minute restarted race, but they were not far enough ahead of Kelvin Fletcher's McLaren. Once the success penalties were added, it was the 77 car that found itself ahead and claiming the race victory. Aston Martin on top in GT4. What a day of racing here at Oulton Park. Join us again next time at Silverstone for the Silverstone 500.